Hello, everybody. You're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and today's stream is going to be discussing 9 items that I consider some of the basics for being prepared for people who want to get started in preparedness. So I'm going to let the stream catch up, get started real quick. Nobody's in here yet, so I'm just going to make sure my sound's all right and that we're all good to go. Hello to whoever's just joined me. Just making sure my stream is all set up nicely. Sounds like we're doing all right, so I'm just going to let that play in the background. All right. So, today's video is about 9 items that I consider basics for preparedness. There we go, looking a little bit better. So, I've had a lot of new followers, new subscribers join the channel, and whenever I interact with them in the other channels that I'm in, they're always asking what are some basics that they can follow, things that they can start looking at to be better prepared. So I put together a little list of 9 items that I consider to be some of the go-to items that a person should start looking at if they want to be better prepared for the chaos that I think is coming, and that I think everybody probably generally agrees is coming in the world. Things are getting... Kim Patton, Gil, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Just putting together a little bit of a video in a second to cut up and share with folks. So running through to say hello at soccer practice. Steve, thanks for dropping in. Cool. Good to see you. So I'm just putting together a little basic list for some of my new channel subscribers about what a person can do to be better prepared. So basic stuff, but just sort of putting a nice, concise list together to share with folks. So I'm just going to hang out for a minute, chat with you guys, and at some point I'll put together a recording quality snippet. But mostly just here to chat, hang out, drink a little bit of coffee, and see how it's going with everybody who drops in. But yeah, how's it going with you guys? Gil, haven't talked to you in a second. Just seen you in and out of live streams. How's life treating you? Steve, how's soccer practice? Are we winning? Let's have a drink and talk about it. What up? How you doing? Let's have a drink and talk about it. We are just chatting for a minute. We're going to discuss, have a little bit of discussion about my 9 items for preparedness. And then at some point after we've talked about it, I'm going to make a little bit of a video clip piece that I can use later, cut out and, share a shorter, more concise piece for folks. Water? Oh, you're drinking water, or are you suggesting water? Because I'm also drinking water, and I'm also going to suggest water for preparedness. So I think we're on the same page no matter what. 27 yards of concrete. Yes. I think anybody would be sore after 27 yards of concrete. That's it's a lot of concrete. You pouring a pad, or what were you doing? So we've been focusing mostly on food lately. Suggesting, cool, yes, water is very high up on the list here. Half of a driveway, very nice, very cool. So, yep, we've been focusing a lot on food, trying to fill some of the holes, trying to find holes in our food preps and fill them, keep everything up to date. We're looking at getting a freeze dryer, weighing the pros and cons of that, but that's something that's getting tossed around the household lately, and increasing our water filtration abilities. Other half of the driveway will be poured Monday starting at 5 a.m. Right on, man. That's very cool. Gonna have a fresh driveway. So yeah, mostly focusing on our food and water. I've always had hundreds of gallons of water stored up. So don't really have much more space to commit to that, but that's a pretty fair amount to have sitting on hand. Um, use use a freeze dryer with no power? No, they take a fair amount of power. Um, that's more the kind of thing that you are using nowadays to store food for downtimes or for you know short supply times. 10 275-gallon totes for water. That's great. That's a very good amount of water. You're sitting pretty right there. That's nice. I like that. I wish I had the space for a couple thousand gallons worth of water. Cool Frog, how you doing? Good to see you, bud. Thanks for dropping in. I know I'm overlapping with Joe at the moment, but I just had to light a fire under my ass and get started on here, get a stream going. So thanks for dropping in, bud. We're just chatting here for a minute. We're going to start on the discussion here in a few minutes about my 9 basics for prepping, and we're going to make a little clip video later on. So, yeah, good to see you, bud. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, space is a big problem for a lot of people. I'm better off than many. I'm in a rental home, and so everybody here is on board. We're all prepping and stuff, so we've got plenty of space. We're not nearly as bad off as people who are in apartments or sharing a home with family members who are not on board with prepping or storing large amounts of stuff. Those people have a very hard time being able to store, do what they need to do to prepare. So, but I am renting and I am in a neighborhood. So, I'm limited both in the amount of space that I have and in the modifications I'm able to make to the property and the appearances that I need to keep up. It's if I were to start just having large amounts of water totes stacked in the backyard, people would probably complain about it. So I do have plenty of family members outside of town where I'm able to do a lot more of that space heavy kind of stuff, projects or storage. So yes, storage is one of the main problems, especially when it comes to water. The space, the footprint that water takes up can grow quite a bit whenever you're trying to store large amounts of it. So yeah, like Gil said, food that doesn't need cooking to be, non-prepared food that doesn't take, I guess, mostly heat to prepare. But no prep food, medical supplies, medical tools, books, and more books. And yes, winning reality. Hey, bud, thanks for dropping in. Good to see you here. Good to see you. Gravity filters, yes. Gil, yes. Good points all around. I'm glad you brought up the no cook food. Well, hello, you secretive hobbit-like creature. Hello, Palmetto. How you doing, bud? Yep. I feel like I curse it when I text you to let you know I'm going on, so I just figured if you're awake, you'll see it. If you're able to watch, you'll be checking YouTube. So, hello. Good to see you. Sparkles, how you doing? Good to see you. So yes, winning reality, gravity filters. Pretty much, well, I mean, that's a lot of the good ones are gravity filters. Berkey is a really good go-to brand. I will say while we're on the topic, Memento Mori, right on. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in, bud. I will say on the subject of water filters, know what your water filters claims make. They are very, very careful about the claims that they make. They will tell you what they're made for. Do not expect to use camping backpacking filters to filter water out of the river that goes right through your suburban town. Many backpacking filters are not meant to get gasoline or oil or many other things out of the water. Anna, good to see you. I'm glad you were able to drop in. Yep, I neglected or decided not to text anybody, just see who managed to pop up for this one. So glad you made it. Very fun, Palmetto. Fun stuff all day, probably said sarcastically. Cool. got a lot of friends in here. Thanks for dropping in, everybody. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Although I'm sure if you saw this, you're very likely subscribed already. But yeah, we got a good crew hanging out. Right on. So yeah, water filters. Um, yeah. So Anthony Palmetto has had a busy day today. So glad you managed to be up and here to watch, even though it's 10 o'clock over on the East Coast. So yes, Gil, diet and fitness is on the list. We'll be getting there in a second. Perky bottles, nice. Oh, lost them both, but said they tasted salty. I'm not sure about the saltiness. I've never tried the Berkey bottle. Um, but yeah, when it comes to filters, a ceramic membrane is going to be one of the best ones that you can get because um, it's just mechanically removing uh, a very large variety of things from the water. A lot of your backpacking filters are using a porous membrane, uh, and it's very different. And they don't even claim to remove a whole range of things from the water that you want to be sure to remove from the water. So, ceramic membranes tend to be some of the most widely available, high quality, useful filters that there are. So, and that tends to be one of the main suggestions in the prepping community. A good form of distillation would be really nice to have to use concurrent with any other form of filtration. Um, but yeah, you really want to be considering anytime you're using a filtering or water treatment process, you want to be really careful about considering what could be in the water and what treatment you're applying to the water, what it's meant to do to it. Boiling will not remove gasoline from water. It will evaporate large amounts of it, but it's not going to get a lot of the petroleum distillates out of it. So you want to be very careful. If you're drinking from a canal like in LA or something like that, I don't think those even have water in them anymore, but that's going to be half, 50% things that are not water. So um, Berkey is banned from selling their filters in several states for false claims of what it can do. Interesting. Yeah. And again, I'm not making any claims about what it can do, but it is one of the most widely suggested. And just in general, ceramic membrane filters are going to do a lot more than many of the other kinds on the market, especially the filters that are 30, $40. Like those are not marketed to filter large amounts of water of all contaminants. It's not pronounced canal; it's pronounced anal. Yeah, I forgot about that. I did learn that in English class. Um, so the other thing to consider is that many filters are they really don't have a very large volume life. I guess you could say they're not meant to filter hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water. Um, so pay attention to that because their efficiency does degrade the further into their life they go. So you're going to have less throughput. They're going to be able to process less at a time. Uh, yes, thank you, Paul. I don't appreciate that. Uh, but you definitely want to know how much you're going to be able to get out of your filter per day because if you've got a 10-person household, you need, probably a filter that can do at least 30 gallons a day. That's just giving each person 3 gallons of clean water for food and drinking, for bathing, and for the cleaning of their food items. So cooking, processing, and stuff like that. Um, 3 gallons per person per day is very tight and very uncomfortable living. Um, and you could get by with unfiltered water for other uses, but uh, for a 10-person household, being able to filter 30 gallons of pure water per day is a low threshold to try to meet, and you're gonna use up the lifespan of many filters within a matter of weeks at that rate. So, um, Palmetto prefers digging wells 200 feet deep by hand. Yeah, obviously the best route to go. That's what I spend most of my afternoons doing, and it pays off in droves. So, dig wells by hand. Yes, definitely. Yeah, you definitely want to go to home system for 10 people, but then, you know, do most home systems require power? What are they, what kind of consumables are they using? One of the main things one project that I've worked on for quite a while in the background and haven't ever made a video about is trying to figure out how to create a pretty reliable mass filtration system using, a lot of gravity pressure. Because it's, as far as I know, it's not a problem that's really been tackled short of professional systems that cost quite a bit of money and therefore are not really available to the majority of people. So the best options tend to be getting a well and hoping that it doesn't get contaminated, or living very close to a very clean source of a lot of water. Um, can't even save water anymore because of the presence of PFAS. Um, I know about this, but I'm going to hurry and just get some verification of that info, even though I'm sure Palmetto is about to drop that for us. Yes, octanoic acid, or perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. Forever chemicals, yes. So the acid rain type shit, stuff that I dig wells. No, I was being facetious. Winning reality. I have been involved in the digging of wells, but I don't currently dig wells. I was, just playing along with the joke at that time. But yes, there's nasty stuff in rainwater. Not to mention, well, we're still early in the show, so I'm not going to get off into the conspiracy theory buzzwords quite yet. But Gill has an irrigation ditch that runs through the properties there. Snake River is a third of a mile away. Plenty of non-potable for washing and flushing. Yeah, there you go. Very nice. What's the factor of runoff into well water? It really depends on what you're talking about. Um, Perfluoroalkyl chemicals, they have found them present in high mountain water where only rain reaches. Yes. There are conspiracy theories related to this. Yeah, so what's the runoff of into well water? Really depends on what it is. Chemicals, pesticides. Um, there are some chemicals that I forget what it is, but in the Love Canal incident, which I'm sure some of you will be aware or familiar with, that's a chemical spill. There was actually more or less a chemical dumping ground that got breached by what was being dumped there. But just a very, very large chunk of area in New York State that is, as far as I know, the ground itself is still quite toxic, where they managed to finally contain it after it spread. But if I'm thinking of the same incident, those chemicals are of a kind that leach very quickly through groundwater, much more quickly than other things. Like petrochemicals, as far as I know, don't move as quickly through groundwater environments as quickly as other things can. Um, the thing is that short of testing your well water constantly, you don't know if something that's happened uphill from you has seeped down through. So, uh, yeah. What am I drinking, Sparkles? Right now, I am drinking Black Rifle coffee, canned stuff. It's my favorite canned coffee. Not concerned about the apparent controversy surrounding them and right wing people online. I think it may have been something of a nothing burger, but it is, as far as I know, the best canned coffee. Actually tastes like brewed coffee. Most other things taste like concentrated or powdered coffee. But yes, I'm drinking coffee. I'm gonna be trying to get some stuff done tonight. So, um, anyways, Palmetto. Oh, but after that, I will be moving on to the Talisker single malt Scotch whiskey. This stuff tastes like it tastes like if you were to scoop charcoal out of a campfire, filter water through it, and then just drink that water. Um, it tastes like campfire charcoal. It's amazing. It's good stuff. Um, catching up. Let's see what we got. So Palmetto is saying that depends. Yes, referring to the groundwater seepage, depends on the soil content as well. More sand, more organic matter, clay, all filters differently. But if fracking has taught us anything, it's not hard to contaminate wells. Yes. Um, People don't realize how fluid, I guess you could say, how dynamic the underground water environment is. Um, you have to put Scotch whiskey into one word. Skishki. I got my skishki here. So yeah, water moves a lot in the ground. There's underground rivers. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. So a lot of people don't really think too much about what's going on with their well water beyond clean water comes out of it. But yeah, people don't really realize that some chemicals are going to drop right down into the groundwater, and as soon as they hit the bottom layer of that groundwater layer, they're just going to go sideways along the viscosity layer that they inhabit. So yeah, it is very much within the realm of possibility that something that someone does quite far away from you can end up in your well water. So knowing how to check your well water, and while you have the ability to having professionals check it regularly, is always going to be one of the best options. Because yeah, just having a well or an apparently clean source of water is not always your guarantee. Um, just catching up a little bit. Oh, okay. Yeah. Gil's in the process of getting well water rights for his properties. Sparkle's asking who's in charge of giving him the rights. Have to buy them from someone willing to sell theirs. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure about the mineral right. I thought you would tend to have the mineral rights to your land unless there was some other extenuating interest on it. Um, Interesting. Certain bases in Pennsylvania had to close off their on-base housing permanently after testing fire-suppressing chemicals that just destroyed the groundwater. Guess what's the main chemical in there? PCASs. Okay, yep, that sort of makes sense. Um, hmm. Military does like to test stuff, test chemicals. Okay. I'm going to let that conversation go on, but we're going to talk a little bit about number one. And yeah, your mineral rights should go to the center of the earth. I agree. It's also prevalent in microwave popcorn and non-stick aluminum pans. Yep, that's good to hear. Good to hear. So, finances. So this is going to be one of the unfun prepping things. We're going to talk about this a little bit before we go on. But this is, hey, Divinity, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Good to see you. Yes, cast iron, Gil. Cast iron skillets and Dutch ovens and things like that are the way to go. Yeah, oil companies drill laterally. Yeah, I'm sure that they must have to secure the rights to do so. Unless they're in an area where the mineral rights just stop at 200 feet or something. Yeah, good to see you, Div. Glad you were able to make it. We're just talking about my 9 basics that I think people should look at for starting to get prepared. Right now, we're talking about one of the less exciting ones. I think most people groan a little bit because, well, nobody likes to talk about finances, especially in this context. We're talking about budgeting. Rachel Knight, good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. They can drill before you even know they're drilling. Huh? They must have some kind of weird laws on oil, mineral rights. Then, yeah, that's what Saddam said Kuwait was doing. That they diagonal drilled Iraqi oil. I remember that. Well, I mean, I don't remember that, but I'm well aware of the saga. Yep. I knew Palmetto was going to enjoy this because he's weird like this, but most people do not enjoy the uh, financial side of preparedness, unless it comes down to talking about silver and gold and stuff like that. And that's actually not really going to be part of the conversation. We are going to talk about barterables later on, but really, actually, silver and gold isn't going to play too much of a part of that for reasons that we'll discuss. So, uh, to that regard, the first time that we talk about finances today, it's going to be about tightening your budget. Um, I am willing to bet money that almost everybody here is living on a fat budget. And I could probably say, probably Palmetto can safely tell me that he's, maybe probably a few of you others. I can probably name a couple others that I know are probably following a pretty set financial plan. But the vast majority of us, myself included, drinking this far too expensive Scotch whiskey, uh, waste money on things that we will be kicking ourselves in the ass for later on when things are a lot worse than they are right now. And so that is the main and first thing that the vast majority of people, again, myself included, should be doing to make ourselves more prepared. Yeah, Palmetto been budgeting pretty tight since around 2015. Um, there are plenty of people in the prepping community who are obsessed with budget. I mean, they've been living for years, decades on a shoestring budget, putting all of their finances into preparedness of one form or another. And like I said, I'm not the best at it. I do want to enjoy some of the things that we have while they're still here. But that is a balance that a person needs to keep. It's sort of it's very easy for preppers to fall into eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow the shit hits the fan kind of mentality. But there is something to that. Uh, we don't want to ruin our lives now because of things that we worry about in the future, no matter how certain they are. But the balance should always lean towards preparedness. We should always make sure to be putting a good percentage of our income towards, uh, not necessarily preps, but fortifying our lifestyle, having more of the things that we need or want to have. So I'm not suggesting that if you want to get into prepping that you need to just all of a sudden tighten your belt ridiculously. Hey Reed, good to see you. Glad you made it in. Awesome. Thanks for dropping into the show. We're talking budget right now. Some of the most exciting stuff that we could be talking about when you join the show. Yeah, prepping and living poor seem to be going hand in hand lately, says Palmetto. People think since they can live on very little money that they are a large voice in the community. That's not always the case. Um, yes, if I understand what you're getting at, then I do agree. Um, Using a phone so chat will be slow. All right, well, I'll talk real slow for you then to compensate. um, yeah, budget prepping is a big part of prepping. Yes, Anthony is good at budgeting. And it's again an important thing to it. Most of us don't have the income to dedicate the amount of money that it takes to just sort of get yourself set up. Finances weren't an issue, then yes, there's a lot that a person could do to make great leaps and strides forward in their preparedness. But the vast majority of us are doing this on a budget. Um, Winning Reality says, hold on, my smart home just told me my auto smoothie machine just finished my scheduled evening peanut butter punch. Waiter drone flew into the portable hot tub again, so I have to go get it. Yes, they're a comical look at the future that we may be looking at. um, yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, as Palmetto was saying, there is a very large contingent in the prepping YouTube community of budget preppers. Yeah, and that is a thing. So what Palmetto is sort of talking about is that there are a lot of people in the prepping community uh, who have the frugality channels and budgeting channels, and it is sort of out of necessity. And this may seem like a purist perspective, but um, it speaks a lot to where a person is coming from, and this is actually on the list. Sort of fits more into assessing your friends and assessing your sources of information than what I've got going on here. But we're touching on it because of the no, yeah, and he's not trying to be mean, but just stating what he sees. Yeah, it does. It does. Honestly, it does bear having its own section in here because. Oh, Steve is back lurking while eating. Very good, Corsair trainers. Good to know. Rachel, yep, Rachel is here. Very good. Um, yes, I am going to pencil that in as its own little section. YouTubers, beware of. So, yes, you can be disastrously misled by bad information on YouTube. Um, and yeah, not saying anything bad about frugality channels. I'm sure that there are many good ones, and I could probably name some if I thought about it for a second. But there are plenty of prepping channels that have gotten into it. Um, well, in order to make a YouTube channel, just like any YouTube channel, uh, there is the chance that the person got into it because they wanted to have a topic to make YouTube videos about. I've heard people say, "Yeah, I'd love to start a YouTube channel. I just don't know what it would be about." Um, and I understand the mentality. I got into this because I wanted to make videos about prepping, and YouTube is where you do that at. I would never still be doing this 4 years after I started the channel uh, if I didn't actually still want to be making videos about this stuff. If it was just because I wanted to find something to make videos on YouTube about. But there are plenty of YouTube channels that they do come and they go, and we've seen plenty of them after having been not just making videos, but I've been watching prepping content for much longer than that, 4 years. And there are channels around now that I have never heard about until lately, and there are channels that I watched back then that are not around now. Um, and people come and go for all kinds of reasons, but I'm willing to bet that a fair number of those people got into it, and they may not be prepping anymore, or they may be in a different way. But there are plenty of channels that uh, they're sort of making it up as they go. To be quite frank with you, and so it's very important to assess to gain a sense of how to assess channels, including myself, on a fact by fact basis. Assess everything and really filter it for whether or not it should apply to you. And there are many channels that, as Palmetto was saying, that being frugal doesn't make you a good prepper, just as being a good prepper doesn't make you good at living on less. So there is a Venn diagram where they overlap, where prepper and budgeteer are do go hand in hand, and do the ability to save money, the ability to get by on much less goes a long distance. Wasting less food as you prepare it, plating less food so that you throw less of it away, that can go a long, long way. I am a strong believer in incrementalism. I believe that saving the little bits adds up a lot in the long run. So, yeah. So frugality is important, but it can become an obsession that can get in the way of, it becomes penny wise and pound foolish. You can spend so much time scraping the little bits together that you ignore all the things that you can be doing to make great leaps forward. To be honest, a lot of people spend a lot of time couponing and trying to scrimp and scrounge honestly, to avoid getting a good job. And if you're disabled and actually can't, then that's completely understandable. But there are many people who sort of use frugality as an excuse to live below their potential and not just their means. And I'm hardly living up to the fullest of my potential. I'm sure that I could be out there entrepreneuring and trying to start my own startup company. But I'm going with the route of good, steady paying job and trying to produce side income. Uh, but a lot of people use frugality as a way to try to not have to work as many hours or at all, or to get by on welfare, and try to make a video out of it, make a YouTube channel out of, to avoid getting that job, to avoid having to do anything but get by on welfare or these small amounts of fixed income. Um, so you do want to be careful like that about that, especially when getting your information from people who, well, again, just assess your information, how they're getting it. A surprising number of people in this community basically are bullshitting by watching a lot of other content and providing their assessment, but without telling you that that's what they're doing. They're throwing knife hands at the camera. They're relying on some vague references to military or law enforcement or professional background that's on topic. Um, and so always assess the people that you're getting your information from. And even if they are professionals, even if they do have all the credentials, they're providing information and blasting out to everybody who might watch their YouTube channel. And that doesn't mean that it's going to apply to you. They may be speaking in the context of people who live in the country, or speaking in the context of people who have a lot more disposable income than you do. So, literally, no matter who you're hearing information from, always assess it for how much it should apply to your life. Um, so, a little bit of warning about YouTubers there. That goes for myself. That goes for anybody I ever suggest to you. Always assess their information for its validity in your life. I'm gonna catch up a little bit here to see what you guys are saying. Palmetto, it's why I made my channel back in 18. Got sick of the bad information being relayed because it was seen as an easy way to get money or paying that narcissistic inner urge. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is fear porn. A lot of people, that the fear porn drives views in the prepping community. Many people are in the circuit because of some form of fear reaction, and whether or not that's what's driving them now, hypervigilance is often the name of the game for a lot of people, and so their eyes are drawn to videos and topics that are throwing red flags, talking about the coming chaos and dangers and things like that, um, and not necessarily incentivizing channels to make videos that are boring or factually useful, but not necessarily engaging in an emotional way, I guess you could say. Kim Patton says, I really don't like the buy my stuff and fear mongering / fear porn channels. They do more harm than good. Absolutely. And this is, this is something that it largely is what drove me to actually finally pull the trigger on making my channel. I had done, scrapped. I'd started making videos plenty of times, scrapped the footage because I just hadn't found my voice yet or didn't know exactly what I wanted to say. But it was, in fact, sort of outrage response. When you see somebody doing something and you disagree strongly with what they're saying on a topic that you care about or consider yourself to have an opinion about, and especially when you're watching somebody be financially successful on it, and especially whenever what they're doing is providing information that people may in some remote future rely on to protect themselves, you do sort of get a sense of indignation that this person is putting out information that you consider to be shoddy, or I mean, as much as I dislike the term, misinformation. They are not thinking it through. They're telling people's grandmas to do things that they're telling some imaginary person, some imaginary audience in their mind what they should be doing, but they don't consider that it's in many cases somebody's grandma that's listening to them, and Not everybody's grandma needs to follow the same exact advice as a YouTube channel host's imaginary audience member that they're trying to speak to. Hey, Shaw's Prospecting, how you doing? Um, a lot of YouTube channel hosts, they sort of speak to somebody who's probably a pretty close approximation of themselves, or just your average white male of military age, to be honest. Plenty of channels do focus on speaking to women or different age groups or demographics, but your basic audience demographic of the YouTube prepping channel is going to be some hazy idea that they have. And so, like I said, in the same way that you need to be assessing all the information that you take in as a host, if you're being conscientious of the information you put out, you need to be considering that not everybody is going to be very discerning about the information you tell them. Not everybody is going to uh, have the critical thinking skills that if you tell them, like if I tell you guys to go get fighting fit and do a bunch of push-ups, which I'm about to do in a minute, I need to recognize that that information is not useful for everybody. And so you get a lot of channels who sort of make these prescriptions that really don't fit the bill for everyone, and in fact may be quite dangerous or harmful for somebody to follow if it doesn't fit their situation. But they'll sort of glibly throw this information out like it's a one size fits all kind of thing, and it's really not. Um, yes, Palmetto says being able to be frugal can absolutely be advantageous, but the person that spends 9 hours every Saturday washing clothes by hand instead of spending $2 in electricity just isn't efficient. Oh, yes. And Kim Patton said prepping is not a one size fits all. It has to be customized to the individual. Winning Reality says it's a different phase of the content journey. First, you get the awareness, then research the content. That's where a lot of YouTube content stops. The next stages are consideration and decision. Palmetto says anyone can create a YouTube channel as it's classified as entertainment, versus not everyone can write a book, as publishers are held accountable if information is incorrect. This is true. So if you're putting out real deep information, buying decisions. Yeah, exactly. Winning Reality. You also sort of get this weird intersection where, like Palmetto said, what I'm doing here, what all of us are doing here, is technically entertainment, in much the same way that Fox News, in a court case, successfully argued against defamation because they said that nobody in their right mind would take Tucker Carlson seriously or what he says as anything beyond satire or personal opinion or comedy. And I'm not throwing shade at Tucker Carlson any more than Fox News was at arguing that Tucker Carlson and all late night news media, that is opinion. They all of them argue it in court. They are all opinion. They are all comedy or entertainment. They're no longer and haven't claimed for a long time to actually, well, they still claim to be the news, but not officially or legally are they claiming to be portraying facts anymore. And so, in much the same way, pretty much every prepper, uh, if put to the test, would claim, well, no, what I'm doing is just meant to be entertainment. I just put myself out there for people to laugh at or enjoy or to talk to. I'm not prescribing facts or giving professional advice or anything like that. And that's pretty much what you need to do. But at the end of the day, people do expect their prepping channels to, have some kind of credential, have some form of authority, and I don't claim that. I'm more or less your regular dude. I have been concerned about this and doing this for quite a long time compared to many people. Um, and yeah, like Corsair trainers, I'll stand behind what I say. And there are plenty of people in the prepping community. Corsair trainers is one person who's proud that his credentials stand and speak for themselves. And because of that, he and plenty of people rightfully have a big problem with a lot of these guys who, like I was saying earlier, present themselves as former military or former special something or other or law enforcement. And they say that because I was this thing, I have this special expertise. I have a card, some kind of authority that tells me, uh, that just makes me good at prepping. That just makes me know how to tell people what they need to be doing. And there are very few professions in this world that make a person a preparedness expert. To do YouTube channel prepping bullshit better than anybody else does. But everybody sort of wants to claim some form of credential. Uh, when yes, like Winning Reality said, it much of YouTube production is um, regurgitating other information. The problem comes whenever you get these channels who quite frankly are you can tell just a regular Joe who's sort of trying to play act, whether they realize it or not, and present the information as authoritative versus this is my assessment. You do get plenty of channels that they have made a professional career out of going to companies or organizations or cities or whatever and helping them create a coordinated response plan to crises. And when you get somebody like that, that's a valuable trove of information. But again, even in that situation, you need to make sure to tailor, customize it for yourself. Um, so I've spent a lot of effort to always couch my wording in my understanding is, the prevalent opinion is, and all of these things. And I do that very specifically, not just as a disclaimer, but hopefully because people are listening carefully enough to know the difference between when I say this is what professional opinion tends to suggest. I tend to try to be pretty precise about the source of my information, my certainty on the reliability of the information that I'm giving at that moment, and the importance of you doing your own due diligence. And I hope that lends credence to whenever I become more serious about something and say, never do this or always do that, or it's incredibly important that you listen to these important facets of this thing. Because many channels will present many things authoritatively that they simply don't have the authority to do. Um, so, again, going back off into the YouTubers topic, we're going to move on here in just a second to fitness. Just being able to admit you're trying something for the first time is lost on a lot of people in this community. Yeah, and I've told people there's no problem with. I even actually one of my friends who said he'd like to start a YouTube channel. I said, to be honest, I was actually saying this exact thing. I said, one of the worst things that you can do is to try to start a YouTube channel and act like you're an authority on something you're not. One thing that makes good content is starting a YouTube channel on your journey, learning how to do a thing and sharing that with someone. It'd sort of be terrible to act like you are a really good woodworker or like a carpenter or some kind of cabinet maker, good at cabinetry, I guess, without actually being that good at it, because people would be able to tell. But people would love to watch a channel where you learn how to get into woodworking and the pitfalls and stumbles that you have and the new tools that you need to get to overcome problems so they can follow your footsteps and actually learn how to do it themselves. Watch you go through some of these learning curves, because it's very different than watching an expert try to teach a novice through a YouTube channel. So a lot of people don't. Yes, they foolishly have this sense of wanting to present themselves as authoritative when by simply presenting themselves as just presenting properly, they would be able to produce respectable content. But a lot of people try to present stuff, like I said, like in an authoritative fashion where they act like they have the credentials, and a lot of people can see right through it. And Corsair Trainer says the issue is there's no standards for prepping. So yes, there is no standardization. There is no no code to check things against. So someone can say they're prepped or say what preparedness is, and there's no comparing it objectively. Um, Also, even if these dudes get caught lying or running a con, people do not care, which is more of a statement about society than YouTube. Yes, yeah, it is true. There are many people who get by just fine by, um, yeah, snake oil salesmen basically in the YouTube community, and plenty of people are just fine subscribing to it. Um, it's fun trying certain things that have been repeated ad nauseum. Show on camera how it doesn't work, like my video on the charcoal sand grab. Yes, that was interesting. Um, yeah, so we're gonna tangent on that again for a second here. So um, there are many uh, wives' tales or sort of little bits of urban, not urban legend knowledge. These things work. Like he's saying here, the old water filter, where if you just get like a tarp and make an upside down cone out of it, and sort of make one of these frontier water filters out of it, it's gonna filter a lot of stuff. Um, where you've got your big rocks on top, your finer pea gravel underneath, and your really fine gravel, and then sand, and then really fine sand. Then you pour your water through it, and it's going to filter it. Yeah, those pretty much don't work. It's they work under a very 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 fine set of circumstances. Um, they pretty much don't work in America where there's petrochemicals and everything, and they pretty much don't work. Yeah, exactly. For one thing, in order for one of those handmade filters to work, you're gonna have to run like 50 gallons through it to run any of the. Yeah, exactly. It might get rid of bacteria or some of the finer stuff, but it's gonna be dirty and taste like crap. Yeah. So the point is you get a lot of these sort of regurgitated facts that you can tell that these channels haven't actually tested them for themselves because they very quickly get revealed to be sort of bunk, and that nobody's really applying even critical thinking to it. Um, the well, there are many. One that's very popular is the tea candle under a clay pot uh, trick. Um, it's a go to video for many prepping channels, and the while it's not exactly as bad of a thing as the debunking videos make it seem like, um, there are things like that almost every prepping channel goes to, and they often regurgitate a lot of these things. And as soon as you go and actually try to do it hands on, you begin to realize just how lacking in critical thinking a lot of these channels are to recreate that without actually doing it for themselves. They really are just recreating the other videos. Um, yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, water filter for koi pond took weeks to break in and start working properly. Yeah, they filter technology is very complex, and so just making one out of stuff you found in the woods is almost generally actually going to make things worse. Definitely not much better. But anyways, let's move on to fitness. Uh, One of the other unpopular topics I expect is physical fitness. Um, so yeah, I mean, everything that we're talking about here is somewhat couched in the context that things are getting more chaotic. The world is no longer the comfortable, safe place with a lot of cushy bumper ball walls everywhere, little padded walls everywhere for everybody to be bouncing off of. Um, and that comes in a lot of different aspects. But for one thing, people just need to be more fit. America is, and I assume that most of us here in America are in America, but America is an incredibly unfit country. Uh, And yes, Palmetto said fitness is ignored because a large number of the prepping community is older and less mobile. They don't want to hear that you need to be able to pull up your body weight. And it is to be to put not too fine a point on it. All of the preparedness in the world will do nothing for you if you are uh, decrepit, no matter what your age is. There are a disturbing number of people who have difficulty being mobile. They have respiratory problems simply because of their lack of fitness, because of their obesity or um, their sedentary lifestyle. Their metabolism and energy production is just ridiculous. I mean, so many people lose their steam after a very small amount of work. Um, and again, not trying to make anybody feel bad, but give me one second here. Yeah, I'm gonna survive the end of the world. Gets winded going up the stairs. HDP, High Desert Pioneer, fist bump emoji. Um, I think fitness is generally ignored by many people in the community and in the world in general because there's nothing glamorous about it. There's nothing particularly rewarding. I mean, all right, there's a lot rewarding about exercise and physical fitness. So we're going to sort of throw that out the window, but it's not rewarding in the same ways that a lot of people find other aspects of prepping rewarding. A lot of preppers are in it because they want to be able to buy things to make themselves feel better about preparedness. They're scared about the end of the world coming, and so they want to drop $300 on a freeze dried bucket. That's going to make them feel better. They want to buy uh, the newest Fiskars axes and tools and uh, lights and whatever freaking solar generators. They literally want to come onto the YouTube prepping community and go to the big channels and buy whatever product is sponsoring that big channel, because the whole point of them being here is to use money to make them, this is for many people a hobby, or like I said, a shopping addiction, or they are in fact actually paranoid about prepping things, but they use shopping to make themselves feel better about it. Palmetto, all right, heading to bed. Thanks for dropping into chat. Catch you later on. Rest well, and yep, get up and take care of the future Sarah Connor, hero of humanity. But um, yeah, I mean it's very rewarding to exercise and to stay fit, and yeah, a lot of the prepping community does try to. They're in it for different things, and whenever you actually get people down to these particular two topics, finances and fitness, a lot of people want to lose the thread because these aren't the kinds of things that they were thinking you were going to ask them to do to be prepared. But and this ties into the next one, personal security. So we'll talk about a little more there, but there are a lot of situations where fitness plays a key factor. I mean, what if you're in a food line and there's suddenly a race to the front of the line, or there's a tussle and you got to fight people to get your bag of rice? I mean, you might want to be fighting fit. What if the roads are clogged and there's a chemical spill in your town and you have to evacuate by foot? Um, can you walk 10 miles? Can you walk 10 miles with 40 pounds on your back? That is honestly a pretty low bar. Walking 10 miles flat, which if I were to walk 10 miles on highway here, most of it would be pretty flat, at least for the main thoroughfares around here. I want to be able to carry at least 40 pounds. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, most of you would have a very difficult time packing a pack less than 40 pounds. It's very difficult to stay under 40 pounds and have all the things that you want. Um, so most of you guys, if you just had to throw a pack together, you're going to be throwing together these 100-pound packs. You're going to be breaking your knees like half a mile down the road. So yeah, have you ever? I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic, but how many here uh, have hiked 10 miles in any condition, flat, downhill with a 40-pound pack on. Yeah, it's good for you. It's enjoyable, and I'm not trying to be condescending or anything like that, because it's been a bit for me. I would definitely be feeling it if I went out and did that tomorrow, which actually sounds amazing. But um, I've done quite a lot of backpacking with at least, right around 40 pounds is my safe carry weight. Uh, so I know that I'm capable of it. There are many people who would know that they're not. And honestly, being able to walk 10 miles with 40 pounds is perhaps the safest benchmark for preparedness. If you look at the number of people in the world who become refugees, I mean, we're talking about millions of people, probably just in the last year alone, have had to walk 10 miles or more with 40 pounds. Like, it's one of the most common benchmarks for refugees and crises things is you're going to have to walk a lot, just a lot of walking, a lot of, so shoes and just the ability to walk are some of the lowest benchmarks for preparedness, essentially. So, um, yeah, got a whole video series. That's why the whole bug out bag concept is a joke. Get home bag, yes. Bug out bag, good luck. Um, yeah, and I do agree, HDP, and I'm not in this context, and I'm sure you're on the same page. I'm not talking about bugging out. I'm not talking about packing your hermit shell onto your back, disappearing into the woods, and thinking that you're not just going to die in about 6 to 9 days, if not sooner. Um, but like I said, there's at least a couple different intersecting rail lines that come through near me, and if a chlorine train just spills, uh, everybody's going to have to get out of Dodge for an undetermined period of time. And again, if the roads clog up and everybody's fall 30, 40, 50,000 people are walking on out, like, that's going to be a pretty tough day for a lot of people. But yes, bugging out, thinking that you're just going to pack up and disappear, very unfeasible. And yeah, you would have to be carrying hundreds of pounds per person to really have everything that you'd need to survive. I mean, if you look at how expedition people carried like everything that they needed to go into the Antarctic or just go anywhere for any period of time, um, no one today is really prepared to do that. Very, very few people are prepared to go live for any extended period of time without resupply. Um, even the more extreme expedition type people, they're getting resupply pretty damn often. So, anyways, basic fitness, be able to walk. And I'm not telling everybody. I mean, ideally, everybody would know that they could hike 10 miles with at least some weight on their back. But when it comes to this, as it comes to everything, uh, step by step. I mean, baby steps. Like, what about Bob? Baby steps to preparedness. Um, you know, if you're in a horribly unfit state, then do what you can to get going. I mean, none of us gets anywhere by not taking whatever steps that we can. So, again, if you are disabled, you're in a lot of pain, or you're just at the very bottom of the fitness slope, then really spend a lot of time thinking about what you can do to uh, increase your position. Take inspiration from uh, people who have it worse than you, and uh, do what you can to become more fit than you are and become more capable than you are. Because at the end of the day, fitness is freedom. So I'm going to tie that in with the next one, which is security, which I originally termed as freedom because to me, um, security means a lot more than what most people sort of think of it as in the first place. A lot of people, when you say this kind of thing, it means guns, physical security against violence. And that is a good chunk of it. But at the root core of it, that is freedom. To me, a gun is not power. To me, a gun is freedom from somebody exerting their power over me. So, to that regard, security in my person, in my home, in my privacy and stuff like that, that is freedom from encroachment, whether that's government or somebody else. So this third category or fourth category, I guess now, is security. So I want to be free at all times from the threat of violence, and that is why I am always, as often as I legally can be, armed to defend myself as well as possible. That's why myself and my family exercise good home security, and that's why we focus on when we're out about in the world, being aware of the transitional spaces that we're in, and that goes to driving. Um, yep. On that note, drive safe, memento mori. Listen, but don't text. I am quite careful about driving and road safety. I watch a fair number of videos. I make it a habit to watch car crash compilations, particularly at intersections. Because particularly at intersections have probably the highest number of accidents involving somebody who had nothing, who had no fault, basically. Uh, if you watch intersection car crash compilations, you will realize how many people get a green light and begin to enter the intersection. When they have the green light, then they get pegged by some guy doing 150 miles an hour, T-boning them across the intersection. And there's nothing that you could have done to stop it except for looking both ways before entering the intersection, because that green light doesn't tell you that nobody's coming. It tells you that nobody should be coming. But a lot of people die each day because they didn't look both ways before crossing the street. They happen to be in a car, but that doesn't. I mean, honestly, even a Yamasaki motorcycle going at 150 miles an hour is going to kill you. He's just going to, the motorcycle will come out the other side of the car with your head on it. So yeah, you want to be, defensive driving is defensive living. So I consider security to not just fall under, am I carrying a gun and am I properly trained in that gun? Strapping on a gun is not actually helping you a lot if you're unaware of your surroundings. If you aren't very good at it or don't know what to do with it when the situation arises. Probably the vast majority of people who carry a gun have not put literally any thought into the reality of what the situation will be like if they ever have to use it. So if you are going to carry, I personally suggest that every person who's able to legally carry, and that they receive the training to not only fulfill the legal requirements to carry, but to actually and not just go get any training, but to get training that is reputed to be useful real life shooting situation training. Um, Drills are great and all that, but the reality of situations when you really are learning it from somebody who knows what they're talking about, it changes a lot. And the vast majority of people either freeze up or react poorly. And this gets on to something that I feel like should be talked about a lot more, and I plan on doing a little bit of a covering of some articles about it, is a lot of the tangential things to do with being involved in the use of force situation. You've got your legalities, and you've got a lot of your oddball stuff that a lot of people don't talk about, um, and that is not getting shot by the police as they show up, essentially, or by some other good guy with a gun. I live in Idaho, and if I were to be in a grocery store where an active shooting started and I pulled out my gun and went looking for a bad guy, there's a good chance that there's 3 or 4 other guys going through that store with a gun looking for a bad guy. And basically looking for a guy who might more or less look like a random dude about my age walking around with a gun. And so in my state, you actually greatly increase your chances of getting shot by trying to react to an active shooter situation. Um, and so that's something that I'm always going to consider is if I'm in a grocery store and I hear shooting, do I want to be one of the guys walking around with a gun out do I not want to be, and who am I going to shoot when I see them with a gun? There's a lot of stuff that comes into it that doesn't get discussed much. So there's a lot more to security than just meets the eye and just strapping on a gun. Tyler says he looks like Steve says I look like that. Oh, I get what you're saying. I look like, well, no, I'm just saying that, you know, if I'm walking through a grocery store with my gun out, looking all tactical, uh, do I not look potentially like what an active, nobody knows what an active shooter looks like until they see him. And so a lot of people, when they see me walking through a grocery store with a gun, I may fit the bill for them. And there are plenty of incidents, including one that I was just reading about last night from months ago, where an off-duty cop was hanging out at home, and a fugitive who was actively running from the police knocked on his front door. He came around to subdue the guy, and the police shot him as they came around the corner of the house because they saw a guy with a gun moving into a house. So this off-duty police officer got shot and killed by his fellow police officers just because of a heat of the moment thing. So there's a lot to consider with that. So take training if you're going to carry a gun. Hello, Hoopables. Yes, it is 2020 again, back whenever I streamed. But again, security and that freedom aspect goes far beyond just carrying a gun. It goes towards security on the road, being aware of, I often find myself in a situation driving on the road where I'm very wary of what's going on. I recognize that I'm in a situation that I've recognized leading to car accidents. A lot of people get very concerned when they're boxed in between, 3 semi trucks. There are various situations like that you want to get out of pretty quickly because it's very transitional and it does create a lot of risk. You're much better off being somewhere else on the road. So there's a lot of things that go into security that aren't just carrying a gun and aren't just, home security or threats from other people. You want to be very conscious of everywhere that you go and the circumstances that you put yourself in. Even something so far as the buildings that you go into. I think that a lot of people don't think very much about, the structural integrity of the places that they go, the fire hazards of places that they inhabit on a regular basis. One thing that I think about whenever I enter buildings is, what would happen if there was a sudden and, quite bad fire. Fires do spread through the roofing areas of buildings pretty quick. So you can be in a building that's 80% on fire without knowing it until it's damn near too late. I make a point of watching a lot of these videos about catastrophic fire incidents, human stampedes or crushes, if you will, chemical leaks, building collapses. And you'd be surprised by how modern some buildings are that collapse. The building code changes every time that something bad happens, but they don't go through and rebuild every building that was built before that. So there are plenty of buildings out there that are susceptible to certain things that can still happen. So it's always important to, be aware of how old the building is that you're inside of, how many fire exits there are, and whether or not it might be a building that has far too many people in it for, there's a lot of buildings that would not be allowed to be built today because they're not supposed to have 400 people and just 3 exits. And it's important to know if you're in a building like that, what other secondary exit options you have. Do you want to be, I don't like walking under sky bridges in malls because even though most of them are probably structurally sound, sky bridges do collapse occasionally. So there's a lot of stuff like that you on a day-to-day basis enter a lot of environments where your safety really isn't up to you. So security extends to those kinds of situations where you go into a stadium, you're now at the mercy of the crowd, of the security forces. of a lot of different factors. So, cannot walk on grates in the sidewalk. It's confirmed. Anna is a cow. No offense, Anna. Not making any physical correlations there, but if you can't walk across metal grates, then that means you're a cow. Suicides jump off of sky bridges and land on people happens more often than you might think. No, I'm not the least bit surprised, and no number would surprise me. Yes, so there's a lot of stuff like that. When you're walking in a downtown area with tall buildings around you, do you keep your eyes up for falling people or falling stuff? You're not going to be able to keep your eyes up enough to catch everything that might fall on you, but you'd be surprised how many people their field of vision does not extend vertically. So yeah, that all that. What kind of breed? Um, Chocolate. Yeah, you're one of them brown cows, Angus. Um, so yeah, security extends to far beyond just do I have a gun? Can I shoot someone if they come into my house and all of this stuff? Security extends to how secure are you? Are you secure in your car? Are you secure as you walk around? Are you free to live in this world without threat of interference? You haven't heard that, Anna? Yeah, go look up Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. There's a whole song and music video for you to go enjoy after this. Um, so, yeah, security for me is actually an umbrella term that covers, more preppers die from house fires, heart attacks than mass shootings or nuclear missiles. Yeah, and that's sort of where we get to with the finances and fitness. A lot of this is sort of, and the way that I look at a lot of preparedness is there's no point in stashing all this freeze dried food if you're going to die from a house fire or a heart attack or a car accident because you did all this prepping stuff at night and the rest of the time your brain was disengaged. You weren't thinking about how to maximize your longevity in every aspect of life. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to is fortifying our lifestyle so that random whims of the world and random happenstance, uh, we're not just at the whim of what happens to us. We can guarantee, we can say, yes, this is my lifestyle. This is the lifestyle that I will maintain. And I would like to have it better. Sometimes I do enjoy better, but there is this base lifestyle that I want to maintain that I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that me and my family can at least maintain some level of quality of life. So at the core for me, prepping is fortifying your lifestyle and to the other extent, maximizing longevity. But there's no point in doing all this other stuff if you walk around late at night in the shady part of town with headphones in, stumbling around drunk, just asking for somebody to come up and mug you. Or if you drive drunk, just literally a ticking time bomb for yourself and everybody else. Um, prepping and preparedness is completely pointless if you are basically a walking train wreck in every other aspect of your life, and that's a surprising number of the community. Hooples carries a smoke detector with him on his trips. Don't trust hotels and friends' places. He's nuts, though. No, I mean, honestly, that's a completely reasonable thing to do, especially if it's like a little keychain one that you can have on your luggage so that anywhere that your backpack is because I mean that's true. Even in a backpacking tent, it would be very valuable to have a carbon monoxide and smoke detector because, it's just a regular like round one, and that's reasonable enough as well. They do make little transportable carbon monoxide and smoke detectors for, like I said, if you're in a tent or a camper or wherever you happen to find your person, where you can't rely necessarily on the facilities to guarantee that you're not just going to die inside of them. I'm going to go ahead and get myself a little bit of the fire water. Pooples is looking at battery CO if anyone is making vids to save him the effort. Well, maybe I'll look into it. I do need some video content ideas. That is good stuff. All right. A little bit of water. Don't even think there are batteries in my smoke detectors. I'm pretty sure they're chirping. Started chirping at 3 a.m. some night, got removed. Yeah, that's not a great idea there, Anna. Can't say I've never been in that situation, but I can say that you got to get that done. It'd sure be a shame if you woke up dead one day. Yeah, let me look at that. Hooples. I'll see if I can find something interesting there, because that does sound pertinent. Portable CO and smoke. Batteries always go out at 3 a.m., but it's a small price to pay. It's true, yes. That's when the underpants gnome switch them out for their dead batteries. Yes, have more than one, so pop the battery out and fix on days. Yeah. So yes, keep your fire detectors or smoke detectors up, because yes, don't want to wake up dead. So far we have discussed fitness, finance, security, and shitty YouTubers. So next we are going to talk about water, as was suggested earlier by make sure I get your name right. Let's have a drink and talk about it. Don't know if you're still hanging around, but they did mention water earlier, so I'm going to give them the shout out. So yes, water. You're going to die without it. You need at least a gallon a day. I suggest at least 3 gallons per person per day. That is, like I said earlier, going to be an uncomfortably small amount of water for most people. That does not include a proper shower. Your average American uses up to or around. Let's find out, actually. Give me just half a second here. I think it's usually around 17 gallons of water per shower, but I'd like to just find out what the internet tells us. Average American shower water volume. Average American shower water volume, approximately 15.8 gallons is what the internet says right now. So that sounds about right. So yes, your average American shower is about 16 gallons of water. Some of you will remember my low water shower, in which I used a spray bottle of water to complete a rather meager and unsatisfying shower. But yes, showering with low water is not particularly fun. And while you can use water that's perhaps not as good as drinking quality water, you pretty much want to use drinking quality water to shower, because your body's going to absorb pretty much everything that you would digest. So, really, the only difference is you could use water that has dirt in it to bathe, where you wouldn't want to drink the dirt. But if there's bacteria or chemicals in water that you wouldn't want to drink, you don't want to bathe in it either. More anxiety. There's only one stairway down from the second floor. The only other exit is the only window in her room, which is a door that she doesn't know where the key is to. Yes, you live in a janky place, Anna. That is an old church or an old firehouse, if I'm not mistaken. Atlas bunkers have flushing toilets. In a nuclear attack, flushing poop with potable water is dumb. Yes, that is true. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, yeah, there's really no amount of water that is enough to use it to flush with in that situation. Atomic Survival, good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Just stocked up on water as we may have a hurricane soon down here in Florida. Yes, you are not a stranger to inclement weather down there. So calculated over a gallon per person per day using the 55-gallon storage containers. Yes, and in a pinch, a gallon per person, over a gallon per person per day is enough. because a person doesn't need to bathe that often in a short-term emergency situation. Uh, and if they do, you can do rag or sponge baths and get by for quite a while. You can use uh, wipe baths, although you want to be careful and know what you're doing there because most baby wipes are not antibacterial. So you're more or less just moving stuff around, but you can still get bacterial problems, fungal problems while using baby wipe baths. So you definitely want to use a product that's meant for that, like a medical bathing product, or know what you're doing and mixing your own solutions for using. But you can bathe with a much smaller amount of water than that, obviously. Um, Reed asks if I heard about all the IVM and HCQ are becoming approved treatments for COVID according to the NIH. I'm sure I can say that kind of stuff now, but we'll just play along for the under 2 hour mark. Um, but yeah, atomic survival. There's a lot of things that a person can do. I mean, I think even just like a basic salt and baking soda solution would be a pretty decent bathing solution, just, off the cuff. Just salt and baking soda solution, and then rinse with water, basically. Salt's going to act antimicrobial. Baking soda is going to more or less do the same thing. It's going to be good for you. So, and it's also going to have a good scouring effect with each of them. Um, and then each of those dissolve well into water, so that's going to have a good sort of sluicing a lot of stuff off with it, and that's if you aren't able to have some kind of soap. But even soap can be very difficult to wash off with a minimal amount of water, whereas both salt and baking soda are going to be just fine to leave on yourself. So I personally would rather take a bath with salt and baking soda, knowing I might not get all of that off, than a glycerin or something like that. Um, Wait, we don't just wash the good bits? There's a thing to this? No, I mean, mostly the good bits are the important parts to wash. But no, I mean, bathing is important. Uh, you definitely don't want to get weird fungal growths in different spots and stuff like that. So, yeah, in a proper emergency crisis situation, it is much like in the military important to have someone who's making sure that everybody's taking good medical care of themselves. You need to have a man basically making sure that all the men are bathing, and a woman making sure that all the women are bathing and taking care of that kind of stuff. Because one of the worst things that you could find out 2 weeks into a lockdown situation, like some kind of bug in situation, is somebody's got some weird kind of ulcer going on because they haven't been bathing. So, yeah, there's a lot to that kind of stuff. So it is important to bathe. And no, Anna, no, I don't have an OnlyFans going, and I don't plan on doing it soon. If I do, it will be on Mostly Fans. Mostly Fans is similar to OnlyFans, but you do get some haters. Um, Body hair removal can help you keep clean. No, that's true. Body hair is a struggle. I think that most men know the things that are involved in body hair and personal hygiene. So there is something to be said for that. There is also sort of body hair removal is like one of the more intensive parts of hygiene. So you sort of are stuck. I mean, I guess you can just sort of trim, but yes, it is an interesting topic that is discussed when it comes to maintaining good hygiene, especially in a crisis situation. Duct tape used. Yes, duct tape is one way to remove hair. Pooples. Creative redundancy. How you doing, bud? Haven't seen you in a minute. Thanks for dropping in. Hope you're doing well, man. Up in the frigid north, it's about to get actually frigid. Um, um, so yeah. Anyways, water. At least a gallon per person per day. Um, if you just have 1 gallon per person per day, people are going to be pretty unhappy. That's pretty uncomfortable, but it's survival right there. I mean, that's a survival level that you will not uh, if you have a gallon of water to drink and use for food each day, then very likely you will not dehydrate to death. You'd have to be in a very hot, deserty place, very humid place to need more water than that. But yes, water is going to be one of the most important physical, tangible things that a person can do to prepare. Uh, my base level that I like to suggest for people is to pick I guess your first stock water to have coffee. Yeah, you really can't properly have coffee without good water. And that is the main reason that you should store it. So yeah, I'd like to suggest a week's worth of water, 3 gallons per person per day. So that is 21 gallons per person that you should have stored for your first benchmark. And that's honestly not too drastically hard. If you have 3 people in your house, then having a 55-gallon drum, one of those big blue drums, and some flats of water and some gallon jugs of water, it gives you that amount of water. You can buy one of those big bobs, the big things that go in your tub, if you have a tub in your house, and that will allow you to fill a couple 100 gallons of water and have that in storage if you have access to running water ahead of a crisis and you're going to be staying in your house. Washing water doesn't have to be potable water either. No, that is correct, Memento Mori. You can use there's a there's a process for using water that allows you to maximize on it. So you could arguably potentially use very lightly used dishwater for some other form of cleaning. You could use bathing water for cleaning tools. So after you've bathed in it, if you have some muddy stuff or some kind of outdoor tool application for your water, or using for mixing concrete with, or depending on what you use to bathe, you could use it for maybe not crops, but some kind of outdoor water use. You can reclaim your water in various different ways. Now, you don't, if you're talking about like the level of filtration, like I said earlier, I prefer to bathe in water that I would be okay with drinking, because your body absorbs a large amount of water through your pores and a large amount of the chemicals in the water through your pores. So you do want to be aware of how clean the water is that you're drinking. But obviously, plenty of people bathe in a river that they wouldn't necessarily drink. But yes, not potable, but it does need to be not toxic. Some contamination can be deadly, even absorbed through the skin. So yeah, you wouldn't want to be bathing in pesticide water. But yes, there's a lot of water that you wouldn't want to drink that is just fine to bathe in. Of course, our train has to slide out. All right, have a good night, man. Thanks for being here and hanging out for a while. Catch you in the later. Runoff from chemical plants can prove to be very dangerous. Yes, but what Memento was saying does basically stand. I think most of us can agree that we would feel safe bathing in a river that we would want to filter before drinking. Your skin is pretty good at keeping bacteria out and things like that. So you can go jump in a river, scrub off with some soap, and come out cleaner without having to filter it. So yes, it's true that if you have access to somewhat clean water, you don't need to use your filtered potable water for bathing purposes. Pardon me. So this is all true. So there are different levels to your water production. You could even clean your dishes in the river, right? Right. Yes. I was talking with the presumption that you were using an environmentally friendly soap, Hooples, which I do. I always make sure to use backpacker soap if I'm going to be out in the woods. Another Quincy hut. I would love to create a redundancy. I actually really want to go out and do some winter camping this year. It's been far too long since I've been out, and it is definitely something you need to do regularly enough to acclimate. I put a lot of value in being acclimated to the winter and to the cold, so I'm going to spend some time getting my winter gear set up and ready to go this year, so that when it's snowing out, I can do some some proper snow camping, maybe a little bit of a snow hut. Yes, Anna, the Quincy hut is the snow cave. So yeah, I wanna do some proper snow caving. Um, yeah, no, it's true. Those soaps are not really meant to. They don't naturally occur in rivers, but yeah, you don't really need it. But point being, you could do cleaning and dish cleaning in a river. Um, yeah, that's the main thing, Hooples, is I haven't really gotten the kind of snow that I need to make a proper snow hut without going out into the woods and finding a ravine between a couple hills. Um, yeah, friction gets you cleaner than the soap unless you've fallen in a pig pen. Although Hooples, I will say that baking soda uh, is is going to be a very natural cleaning agent. That would be just fine to end up in a river, scrubbing yourself with baking soda. Because yes, scouring for your body tends to be just fine for most cleaning applications. Um, yeah, in SHTF, all waterways will have poop in them very fast. This is very true. All right, so we've talked about water. We're going to get into food and medication. So this is pretty basic. You need to have a set amount of calories per person per day, and the same thing goes for regular prescription medications. Um, these are things that you need to have on a daily basis, generally somewhat less than you need to have water. But for each person that you have in your household, you need to have at least, I would say, 2,000 calories per person per day for 1 week, as well as doses of medication for their bare minimum for that entire week. Um, that second one is very difficult. If you'll pardon me, I'm just making sure I don't have any work texts that demand attention. Um, yep, noted, noted. Okay. Uh, yes, thank you. Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, so, um, yes, the prescription medication is particularly difficult because most people, for most prescriptions, they're getting pretty much exactly what they need to have for the prescription period. Meaning, if you're meant to have 3 doses per day for a month, you're getting nine. Well, what am I saying? Yes, 90 doses. Um, and particularly with abusable medications like opiates and things like that, controlled narcotics, uh, you're going to have a very difficult time getting more than 2 or 3 doses ahead of what you actually need. I know this from experience that I have family members who are on pain medications and they can hardly get what they need to get by. They often find themselves taking doses ahead of time to manage pain and basically being stuck for it later. So that is the nature of prescription medication in America and much of the world. So one of the most difficult parts of storing, of preparing, of stacking stuff ahead of time is oh, okay. Have a good one. Winning Reality missed that for a minute. Um, is storing prescription medications ahead of time. Yes, there will be major withdrawal issues from many people in a grid down or a supply collapse situation. Um, that is a whole field of topics, and to be honest, I'm just not prepared to go into what a person should do to prepare for that. There are so many drugs that you can't just stop. It's going to be a very ugly situation for many people, but um, anything that a person can do to have just a few doses ahead of time is going to help them a lot if they find themselves in a lock-in situation for a week. Like I said, chemical spills, very reasonable things that make a person's life fall into chaos. If you, for some reason, can't make it to your prescription pickup for 3 days, which is a reasonable enough thing to have happen, you don't want to be stuck without your medication. Just in a regular day-to-day life situation, it's good to have a little bit of a buffer for your life's necessities. And I do think it is deplorable that we're in a situation in America where a person can have life-sustaining medication with limited access to that stuff. ideally you would be able to go to your doctor and say, I want a month's worth of my medication. I don't want to have to be reliant on other people's capabilities and the supply chain to have the things that I need to be safe and healthy. But short of being able to individually assess that situation, there's not a lot of advice that I can give on that kind of thing. But when it comes to what an individual needs to do to fortify their lifestyle, their daily food calorie necessities and medication necessities are important. And I suggest having at least a week's worth of those things. When it comes to calories, the reasons I suggest 2,000 is because it's good bit above the average suggested amount of calories for a person, but it's under the amount of calories that your average male needs for a heavy workload. Now, ideally, in most situations, we'll actually be doing a light workload. We'll mostly be bugging in and staying pretty sedentary. But there's plenty of preparedness or crisis situations where your workload is going to be increased and you're actually going to have pretty high caloric needs. So, a lot of people say you can get by with just 1,000 calories per person per day. I like to say two, because ideally you'll be able to not eat the full 2,000 calories per day and have a surplus left over. Um, Up here, you can get a non-prescribed 7-day dose for regular meds from your pharmacy. Okay, well that's cool. 4,000 a day in early SHTF unless you are bunkering. Early SHTF is going to be hard. Plan to eat often and well. Exactly, Hoobles. Like I said, 2,000 is actually well under the limit for heavy workload calories. If you sort of think of the average farmer's meal, you've got your 3 or 4 eggs and your sausage and bacon and hash browns and toast and stuff. That's thousands of calories. I mean, people who work hard and walk a lot and lift a lot and do a lot of stuff, they burn thousands of calories. So yes, 2,000 is actually low for a heavy workload. Creative redundancy walk for a few hours again today. Very nice, dude. Very nice. Um, Full meal makes for a slow mongoose. Yes, that is true. But at the same time, too small of a meal makes for a slow mongoose as well. Um, yeah, exactly, Hooples. People really don't appreciate what it's like to not have enough calories. I've done a lot of demanding physical labor in my life, a lot of shoveling, I've bucked hay. I've done a lot of demanding physical work, and you burn a lot of calories. You definitely hit the wall very hard. Racing, hiking, any physically demanding activity. Um, when you run out of calories, you run out of energy. You crash very hard, and that is not something you want to have happen when your life depends on your capabilities. So yes, 2,000 calories is honestly a pretty conservative estimate for what a person might need. You may well need much more than that. You likely will need much more than that. So again, 2,000 calories a day, that is your bugging in or base level amount. But again, we're talking about what people need for an introductory preparedness. So 7 days, 2,000 calories per person per day. 14,000 calories per person is the bare minimum that you should have stored. Pardon me. Anna says she honestly sucks at eating enough and always has. Likes food and good food, just not interested in crappy food. Yeah, but uh, in the situation when you're working more than you're used to, you're walking a lot, doing stuff, and stressed all the time, you're going to eat a lot more than you do now. I think getting 2,000 a day would be great in SHTF, but if anyone is doing a bug out bag, go for 10 Cliff or Laura bars a day and avoid peanut butter. Good point. Yes. So we're going to move on from food. We're going to talk about your friends. These are loosely in order of priority, and the reason that friends comes after food, water, and these various other things is because the people that you surround yourself are incredibly important. The people you surround yourself with are incredibly important. um, for various reasons. And this doesn't just this goes both directions. You want people around you who are capable. You want people around you who you can trust. Hoople says, "I'd like to see people eat nothing but peanut butter for a jar for 72 hours. I'm not. I have lived on peanut butter. I have been very, very poor in my life and living in a car and eating peanut butter. So, yes, it is not pleasant. And most people would not want to do it. And it is not pleasant. So, anyways, um, when it comes to the people you surround yourself with, it is important for two reasons. You want people around you who are capable and, ideally, really tactical, really professional people who you got your whole squad there and stuff like that. But on the other side of that, you also don't want to be surrounded by shitty people. There are a lot of shitty people in the world. And yeah, exactly. Good advice for life in general. Choose your friends carefully. Um, because, yes, bad friends can ruin your life. And that's literally life in general. Um, I mean, I think that sort of speaks for itself. I think everybody here is old enough and wise enough to recognize that bad friends can tank your life in the best of days, and they can be exponentially worse on bad days. And in a crisis, every day is a bad day. People with poor emotional intelligence, poor tempers, people with poor decision making skills, extremely emotionally driven people. These are all very poor people to have around you in a crisis. Um, and so it's important to do the best that you can to curate your inner circle, make sure that you're not surrounded by people who will be a detriment in situations, um, and prepare yourself for dealing with people that you can't get rid of who are going to be a detriment. Um, a lot of people have a mother-in-law or a brother-in-law or whatever that is going to be dangerous to have around, but they're not going to be able to avoid having them around. You're going to end up with people who are a hazard, and you're going to have to be able to navigate that and negotiate that. So it's very important to be aware of who's around you, and that goes for building community, meeting people near you. No person is an island, and honestly, there are very few situations that I can think of where a person is going to be able to act independent of the people around them. You need to know people who are useful to know, who are valuable friends. And this is very difficult. A lot of people live in communities locally where it's difficult to meet like-minded people. Um, but that is important. It's important to know people who are decent people who maybe aren't currently preppers or who wouldn't appear currently to be particularly valuable in a crisis situation. But character means a lot. Reliability means a lot. And being able to assess people for their character and reliability is an important skill to have. And if you're able to do that now and gain rapport or friendship with people who are of good character and who are reliable, those are the kinds of people who become valuable in situations, in hairy situations, whether or not they were a prepper beforehand and have stuff. You will very quickly recognize the value of having valuable people, of good people, having them around you. Have a good night, creative. Good to see you, and thanks for dropping in. Um, I tripped my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, zombie fodder. Some people, yeah, yeah. I have a few friends, none of them make it into my retreat group. Kitty has a few friends, some of them do. It's not something I focus on. People show up, they work or starve. Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion to be had about the who will join your group and who will not join your group when the time comes. But a lot of us will end up with someone in our group that we're going to have to navigate, and that's an important skill to have. So surround yourself with good people, uh, unsurround yourself with bad people, and be aware of how to deal with people, be a good HR person. You need to know how to. You need to be a negotiator, an ambassador, and be able to deal with people. That's going to be a very important aspect of crises situations. Um, yeah, in all honesty, in a full collapse, you cannot feed anyone who is useless or aggressive. So don't from the outset. A flood is different, obviously. Yeah, there's a lot of different situations, and in a lot of them, in really bad situations, you really have a very simple calculus to make. So we're going to burn on through this a little bit here. We're going to move on to skills and info. This is pretty basic. Have skills, learn skills, and also provide yourself with the resources to learn them later. Um, we have an amazing wealth of resources available to us through the internet and through just modern times. Um, Books, seminars. You can go to your local hospital and at least twice a year, at least once a year at least, get a free seminar on medical skills, the Stop the Bleed courses that are provided nationwide. They will teach you very basic skills on how to stop somebody from dying if they've received traumatic leaking injuries. They're leaking their good stuff from the inside to the outside. You can get free schooling in how to stop that. There's an amazing amount of resources available nowadays that we just simply need to take advantage of. And then you also have all the stuff available online for download. There are many prepping channels on YouTube who provide free PDFs, free printable resources that you can buy now or you can download for free now, print, laminate, and have for perpetuity. Um, there's just an amazing amount of stuff. The Stop the Bleed class isn't free there? That's ridiculous, Anna. I thought that was free everywhere. But the point stands that those classes are free online. There's a ridiculous amount of resources online of free information that a person can use now or save and store for later. So that's an incredibly important aspect of preparedness that anybody getting into the topic should pay attention to is no matter how much money you have, no matter how much space, time, or resources you have to do the rest of this, chances are, if you're watching this, you're on YouTube and you can go and learn valuable skills and information that, regardless of anything else, are going to provide you with value in a crisis situation. So skills and information, whether that be in the form of learning things now, downloading YouTube videos and putting them on a hard drive, or uh, going to your thrift store whenever they have $1 book bag days. I've bought a ridiculous amount of books that I have sitting all over here at thrift stores when they will let you fill a book of bags for $1, a bag of books. Um, really cool stuff at thrift stores. There's a lot of valuable how-to books from the 70s, 80s, and on how to make clothes, how to do all kinds of stuff. Um, and even if it's something you're not going to learn today, you can store that. And whenever the collapse happens and you have plenty of free time, you can learn it then. Y'all make some links for a girl homeschool mom to follow. Yeah, we'll get you something, Nana. So, skills and info. The next step is location. So, if a person is just now getting into preparedness and things like that, then your location is definitely something that you want to start thinking about. And this may go all the way up to choosing to move to a different location, but that is honestly one of the more extreme things that people do for preparedness. Now, there are a lot of places in this world that I would not want to live in, especially when it comes to assessing them for their preparedness value. The entire east coast of America has a very dense population ratio to space, um, and to food production. And there's a lot of things that come with that. So, but on an individual basis, that may not be the most important aspect to your preparedness considerations. If you have enough food, then you can live in a densely populated area, as long as you're secure. Like I said, there's a lot of considerations that go into it, but I'm not one of the people who says that if you live in the city, then you're screwed in 100% of situations. There are many crisis and emergency situations where living in a metropolitan area is a benefit to you. Um, so, as always, assess everything custom tailored to your situation, because nothing that anybody says is universal to everybody else. And so, uh, basically, just at its core, location is an important aspect to preparedness and security. Yes, you could live in LA as long as Steve from Corsair Trainers is your neighbor. Yeah, there are certain people in certain situations who will be just fine in many situations. I would not want to live in LA or New York or Paris or many of these places in a complete food collapse situation, a permanent food collapse. You're not going to be staying there. But water, wood, food, no preppers nearby. Yeah. Um, but in many crisis situations, cities are going to be the first places to receive aid. They will also be some of the worst places to be that are going to need the most aid. So there's a big balancing act to it. But suffice it to say, I'm not one of those preppers who says get out of the city 100% pure and simple. When it comes to my own calculus, I plan to never live in a city much larger than the one that I live in. But I do understand a lot of what goes into it for a lot of people. Uh, but regardless, assessing your location is important. I mean, regardless of where you live and how important it is to you to stay there, if you know that a comet is going to hit your town and that in one day it's going to be wiped off the map, you have no choice but to leave. And so part of this assessing your location is a secondary location. Um, if you have to evacuate your town because of a chemical spill or a terrorist attack or a literal comet is going to land on your town, and for some reason they've calculated that that's where it's going to land, um, do you have any idea what town you're going to drive to find a hotel? Do you know what the nearest town is that you have a friend or a family member in who would let you stay in their house on a moment's notice? Um, I have family members in most of the cardinal directions who I have explicit plans, vice and versa, for each person to stay at the other person's house should they need to evacuate for one reason or another. Um, and, with some of those people, we've explicitly discussed this plan up to and including a complete shit hit the fan situation. But, with other people, it's just a friend who or family member who we're comfortable enough to know that if we quite literally knocked on their door, not having been able to call them ahead of time, they would open their door and be more than happy. They'd almost be thrilled to have that kind of situation foisted upon them, all the way down to simply being a good enough person to accept it. Um, it's important to know if you have that kind of person in your life and where your secondary location would be should you have to. I mean, if your house burns down, where are you staying? You should always know if your house burns down while you're out at work one night, what are you going to do? Um, yeah, people are good in emergencies. Yeah, exactly. Hey, uh, Haig Homestead, I think is how I pronounce that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, Go to Mississinua, 1812 up here the weekend of October 8th. You will not regret. Huh, I'm catching up on that particular bit of the conversation, Anna. Okay. So, yes, know your location, know the aspects of your situation, your location. What's the water availability? How many people live in the place that you live? If your town got evacuated, what would be the main evacuation routes? What would the situation look like? There are a lot of things that go into assessing your location, but a lot of A lot of prepping channels won't necessarily tell you to make a good assessment of your area. Corsair Trainers, Steve there is a really good channel to follow for looking at your area and assessing your area, the aspects, the features of your location, and knowing your area well enough to know what you'll be dealing with in a lot of these crisis situations. Um, Final bullet point that I have here is barter items. This is one of the last things that I included in this list because honestly, the vast majority of crisis situations, what you can buy and what you can buy it with is not one of the most pressing matters. But people do like to talk about it, and there are a few situations, just in preparedness in general, where barterable items are valuable. And when I say this, I'm mostly talking about stores of value. A lot of people have been wanting to talk about silver and gold and things like that lately. Um, yeah, swapping stuff with friends is cool. Yeah, when I say barter, it is a little bit of a misnomer because I tend to try to avoid talking about, bartering. Like, hey, can I have 5 of your chickens for 25 of these bullets? Um, Again, that's a little bit of an abstract conversation, and it's fun to talk about. But most of the circumstances where you're going to be bartering, again, a little bit abstract. Yeah, negotiating would be the hardest part of bartering. Yeah, um, that's a whole different conversation. You sort of have to be living in a place where things have stabilized well enough, or people are desperate enough to want to trade. Again, then there's just so many aspects. People tend to be assuming something about the situation. Some people, they're imagining bartering in a world very similar to The Walking Dead. Other people are imagining the TV series Jericho. Other people are just, they're sort of imagining some kind of barter fair that exists in a Mad Max kind of post-apocalyptic situation. It's a very difficult conversation to have. Yeah, people think precious metals can be sold, traded, things like that. So yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. Suffice it to say, the main thing that I suggest to people is if you want to buy something that will always be valuable and will not go down in value, and which people will almost always be at least somewhat willing to trade for, then you're looking at food, water, fuel, ammunition. Those are the main things that will always have value, always increase proportionately more or less to inflation, um, and tend not to fluctuate based on random whims of the market. Gold and silver can be manipulated. They're completely subject to the whims of the market. If somebody sells 1 ton of silver or gold tomorrow, then it completely tanks the price of silver. Right now, silver is twice as expensive as it has been. It's, I think, at around $28 spot. I used to buy it at $14 spot. So do not buy silver or gold right now. They're ridiculously expensive. And while ammo is also ridiculously expensive, it's not going to fluctuate down uh, appreciably anytime soon. So when it comes to if you've got a few $1,000s that you think you want to turn into something else, food, fuel, water, or ammunition are the main things that a person can buy that will always have at least the value they have today. And that's what I have to say about barterables. Any thoughts on that? Salt. Yes, salt is also valuable. It's very unlikely that salt will suddenly become half the cost. It's a commodity, it's a consumable, it will always have value and utility. And so, yes, salt is a decent store of value. Good shoes, clothes, and sleeping systems. Yes, basically any basic commodity or good, especially ones that are somewhat consumable, are always a good store of value. Uh, if they are durable, shelf stable, tradable, especially divisible, then they are a good store of value and more or less a form of currency in their own right. But these are all things that again, the main weakness of silver and gold is, for one thing, their utility. The average person has no use for silver or gold, whereas almost every other of these things, a person can either use themselves or perceive some utility for. Food, water, fuel, bullets, shoes, sleeping systems, clothes, salt, all of this stuff, spices, even spices. Yes, if there are werewolves, hooples, then silver will suddenly become a valuable metal for projectiles. Um, but yes, all of these other things that we're listing here, even if nobody else wants, you will eventually use food, fuel, water, bullets, salt, clothes, shoes. These are all things that, again, even if you can't find someone who wants it, you will eventually save money by having bought it today. Food will only become more expensive. Fuel, water, all of these things will only cost you more to obtain in the future. So by buying them now, if nothing else, you are making a solid investment choice, let alone the speculatory value of these things. Um, yeah, silver is just a step up from currency. Yeah. Hi. Did I miss your correcting me about your name there, High Homestead? I'm going to keep going with that for now till I see. Pronounced Huga. Huga? Oh, Wuga? Okay, well, I'm just going to keep butchering that for a while if you don't mind. Yes, tobacco is. Well, let's see. I have here a carton of Marlboro Red Label cigarettes, and I've already opened one since I found this carton. Smells like a cigarette, which to me generally smells like raisin. So while it's pretty dry, yeah, it's very dry, but I imagine quite smokable. Um, I don't know what the nicotine content is, but I guarantee that about 5 years into a shit hit the fan Mad Max scenario, people will trade me a chicken for this, like one whole live chicken for a cigarette, and then they'll go home and smoke it with 10 of their friends around a bonfire. So whether or not it's high quality tobacco, I guarantee that this pack of cigarettes will be sellable indefinitely, depending on how desperate the person is. Yes, I quit smoking about 7 or 8 years ago, Memento, but I manage a tobacco store, so um, this particular carton was sitting behind some shelves for like 5 or 6 years before I figured out a way to retrieve it because it was down a 6 foot space about 8 feet down, so I had to devise a way to hook it and drag it back up. But I finally dragged it back out and claimed it for my preparedness stores. So yes, that is one of my. I just throw it in the corner, and should the day ever come where people are desperate enough to buy those cigarettes from me in a collapse situation, then I will do so. Uh, GB, is that what you say? All right, I will call you GB Homestead. Oh, CB. Cool. Right on. I'll remember that. Yes. So cannabis is pointless as everyone grows it. Well, hey, I mean, there you go. Everybody's got it now. So not the worst thing to have in a grid down situation. So yes, tobacco. Basically, dry it so that it doesn't get moldy. Because all tobacco has some level of moisture content in it, but more or less, your best bet is to just let it desiccate into a dry, crumbly thing, and then people are just going to have to deal with that later on. All tobacco is going to dry out eventually unless you're growing it fresh. So, um, yeah, it is extremely valuable to store, but more or less, uh, yeah, you're going to just basically everybody's going to be dealing with the fact that all manufactured tobacco has dried out since manufacturing stopped. So unless you really, and I have tried to grow tobacco. Technically, my region should allow me to grow the strain of tobacco that I tried to grow, but none of it sprouted. So I am going to keep trying at that. Uh, I don't know that it's a very feasible crop item in a grid down situation to trade to grow for barter, but um, at my store we sell 5 pound bags of tobacco. It's a very large bag of uh, just tobacco, cigarette style tobacco. Um, and I've considered buying something like that just for to have around. But the reality is that if I'm at the store whenever the shit hits the fan, we're right next to a U-Haul rental facility, so I've already told the owner that if the shit hits the fan while I'm there, I'm going to pack pretty much everything that I can from the store up, and it will be sitting at my house if he's able to find me. Um, and he more or less accepted that. So, yeah, if I'm at work when the shit hits the fan, I'll be taking home tens of thousands of dollars worth of tobacco and alcohol and sitting on it. Yes, vaping. I've helped many people quit through vaping, for better or for worse. I think for better, of my own personal opinion. And many of the people who I've gotten to quit cigarettes have said that they feel better in the meantime since then. So, yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, but yeah, I think it's helping people. So, personal opinion, not medical advice. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but when people come to me and say, I'd rather start buying vapor from you than cigarettes, I help them do that. It's also cheaper, so it's good for them. Uh, but that has basically expended all of the topics we've more or less discussed it. Uh, Love to hear more of your guys' input, but in a few minutes here, I'll probably more or less throw together a little bit of a video clip to share with folks who haven't got the time to watch this whole thing through. And then I will clip that and put out a video later. Vaping is problematic. Long term, it's unclear about COPD incidents. Seems safer than cigs, but we won't know until 2040. Yeah. And I'm willing to acknowledge that I'm not particularly invested in the vape versus cigarettes argument. But insofar as my own personal anecdotes are concerned, uh, people do report that they are happier vaping than they were on cigarettes. And when people express a desire to be vaping instead of using cigarettes, I help them to do that. And I have techniques which help people uh, make that transition successfully. So, um, as far as it's an at will kind of thing, and I do personally, I prefer vaping. As a cigarette smoker, like there's just so many negatives to that. Um, I'll be dead by 2040. I don't worry about it. LOL. I sort of I make dark jokes about that. I feel like our generation, my generation of people, is going to have a very different experience of retirement age than past generations. Um, yeah, I don't think we're going to retire the same way, and I think that our life expectancy is going to be a little different. But we're going to see. Stop cold and chew Nicorette and refuse to be weak. Yes, Hooples. Suggest gum. Any long term nicotine is likely bad, but so is alcohol. Now it's 2 tiny glasses per week only. Sigh. Oh, come on. Alcohol cannot possibly be that bad for you. I think 2 tiny glasses a night is healthy, right? Right. Cool. Glad we decided that. I actually don't drink very much. You've probably seen me drink more than I tend to in a 1 or 2 week period nowadays. Well, that depends if I'm sampling at work, but I don't really count that because that's midday and I metabolize it and move on. So, anyways, any thoughts on the topics tonight, guys? Any input that you haven't shared already on our 9 subjects? We have finances concerning budgeting. We have fitness concerning personal health. We have security regarding your safety in the world, whether that is from violent threats or just general safety. We have water, needing to have a fair bit of water on hand to guarantee your supply of it. Same thing with food, medication. We have assessing your friend group, the people you have around you, whether they are a detriment or whether you have useful people around you. We have skills and information, things that you're capable of, things that you have access to learn today, and information that you can store for later learning. Then we have your location, basically knowing your home and the place that you live, the pros and cons of that place, what kind of crises you might face given your area, and what locations you can go to if you need to evacuate where you're at. Then we have barterable items, basically things that are good to buy that will always maintain their value. So those are our 9 topics. Love to hear what you guys have to share about them. But in a moment, I will do a little bit of a monologue on these things to make a video to clip out and share later. Yeah, Hoopols, thanks for dropping in. Great to have you here, sharing some information on the topics. Weird Debbie M. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. We've been chatting about my 9 basic topics that I think a person should sort of analyze for themselves whenever they're getting into the prepping sphere. They're starting to want to prepare for the chaos in the world. What we've been talking about is the 9 things that I think that they should sort of start to think about. In just a minute, I'm going to actually go over them again to make a little bit of a video clip. So hang around and we'll sort of go over it all again. But good to see you dropping in. May get to test them out if this railroad strike sticks. Yes, that could be ugly. Oh, thank you, Memento Mori. Yeah, appreciate you being here for listening while you're at work. Not following it, but when the government order the strike over, you'd have power outages fast enough. Maybe. Yes, thank you. ID Crisis. Hey, how you doing? Got some people dropping in. I'm guessing Good Logic must have ended his stream recently. You guys were there, maybe. But yeah, thanks for dropping in. We are talking about some basic topics to analyze for new people getting into preparedness. People often ask, what should I do to start getting prepared? And what I've been talking about tonight are 9 things that a person can look at to start analyzing their life and their preparedness situation. So here in just a second, I'm going to go over those again. But yeah, thanks for dropping in, guys. Appreciate you being here. A little bit of hydration real quick. Is it cool to wear a t-shirt under a shirt? Discuss. I think so. I think it's pretty buttoned up and pretty nice, you know. Honestly, what it really comes down to is the women just can't handle the manliness underneath. One of those days where I start thinking about water catchment. Yeah, that's a good option. We were discussing about a lot of water is contaminated nowadays. You want to get your water tested, see what's in your rainwater. But yeah, I mean, any water is good water. You just want to be careful about long-term contamination. So, if you guys will bear with me for a minute, we're gonna gear up to do a little bit of a video clip here for the folks who aren't going to watch the full 2.5 hour thing. Let's see if we can manage a little bit of a video clip out of a live stream situation here. Hey, Creative, welcome back. Glad to see you returning. This is not the shower scene, Hooples. Unfortunately, for multiple people in the chat, this will not devolve into such a thing. All right, so bear with me for a second here. Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video we're going to talk about the 9 things that I think a new person getting into preparedness should be paying attention to and assessing their situation for to increase their preparedness situation. So I have a lot of new subscribers lately and a lot of people asking what are the things that they should do to get into prepping. So real quick, we're going to go over 9 bullet points that I've been discussing with my live stream tonight that I think a person would do well to pay attention to and start assessing to increase their preparedness situation. So the first object is going to be finances, and that's going to be your budget. I think that if you're concerned about the situation in the world and how chaotic things are getting, then you need to pay attention to your budget. Most of us spend a lot of money on things that honestly we're going to kick ourselves for later on if supplies are ever tight, if we're ever short on food or various other things concerning finances. There's a lot that we can do now to better our situation and be spending our money on smarter things than subscription services and fast food that honestly is a passing fancy and won't be very valuable to us later on when we're short on food, toilet paper, or various other things. Object number 2 is personal fitness. So it doesn't really help us to be prepared or store a lot of food if we're unhealthy and die of a heart attack. So aside from all of the other food preparation and water storage and various things, one of the main things that a person can do to maintain their personal preparedness is to be healthy and fit now. Many crisis situations involve a lot of walking and a lot of physical exertion. And a lot of people are going to find themselves in a very difficult situation if they're not very mobile or not very fit. So personal fitness and exercise are some of the most important things that a person can pay attention to increase their personal preparedness. The third bullet point that we have here is personal security. Now, for me, that encompasses a lot of different topics, from personal security against violent threats to home security to safety on the road to just a general awareness of how safe you are in the world wherever you're at. So like I said, this encompasses a lot of stuff, but in general, a person should always be aware of their situation and the circumstances that they're in and any threats to their personal safety wherever they're at. So to be prepared to go through life and not die through some mishap on the road or from a violent encounter, a person should always be very conscious of their personal security and the circumstances that they find themselves in. So next, we're going to start getting into some more preparedness related aspects, starting with water. Water is one of the most important things that a person needs to store, to have on hand, to guarantee that they always have this regardless of any supply issues. So my personal suggestion is at least 3 gallons per person in your household per day for a week. So 21 gallons of water per person in your household. That's one basic benchmark. Obviously, we want to go beyond that, but for our starters, we want to go 21 gallons per person in your household. As for food, we want to have 2,000 calories per person per day as a basic benchmark. So that means 14,000 calories per person for 1 week. We're going to take that further and say all of our prescription medications, we want to have at least 1 week's worth of doses set aside and kept fresh so that we always have that on hand in case we have a hard time getting our prescription or we're forced to leave town for a week for emergency reasons. We always have at least 1 week's worth of food and prescription medication doses on hand. Next bullet point is going to be assessing our friend group. At any point in life, your friends dictate how good your life is. So even on a good day, you don't want to have bad friends. So this goes for real life or crisis situations. You always want to have people around you who are emotionally stable and reliable. And the worse that life gets, the more important that is. So whether you're talking about day-to-day life or crises, emergency situations, knowing that the people around you are reliable, emotionally stable, and somewhat capable is extremely important. Next topic is going to be your skills and capability. Now, this is important for preparedness, but also just life in general. When you want to be prepared, you can spend money and you can do a lot of things, store a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, all of that can be taken from you in a moment, and all that you'll have is your capability of reproducing that. So the skills that you gain and your personal capability are some of the most valuable things that you can have because they can't be taken from you and they can infinitely allow you to produce more for yourself. So right now we have an infinite resource of the ability to learn and have access to information. And so capitalizing on this now is going to allow you to prepare in ways that later on you're not able to do. So not only are you able to learn skills that are valuable to preparedness and just life in general, you're also able to store this information in the form of digital storage or books for later use. So this is one of the most important things that a person can do, because regardless of what you lose or what happens in the meantime, you'll always have your personal skills and knowledge to draw from. Uh, Next to last, we have your personal location. Now, this can be a difficult one because often there's not a lot of things that a person can do to change their location short of moving, but it's extremely important to be familiar with your locality and know what assets you have. For instance, water, people, population density. These are all things that you want to be aware of. And so, assessing your location, knowing the pros and cons of where you live, the people that live around you, and where you might need to go in the case of evacuation or various crisis situations. These are all important things to assess whenever you're starting to get into the world of preparedness, paying attention to your life and how it affects you in these crises. And lastly, because everybody likes to talk about it, is a store of value. People like to consider bartering in emergency situations. And while in many situations you're not going to be trading silver or gold or a lot of these other things, it can be valuable to trade your dollars today into something that'll be more useful to you later. So in this case, I'm talking about food, water, ammunition, fuel, valuable items like tools, shoes, clothing, stuff like that. These are all things that really never go down in value. They're almost always worth the same thing compared to someone's wages. And by turning your dollars into these things, you will at least be saving yourself money in the future and probably producing something or saving something that you can trade to somebody for a higher value than you bought it for today. So while I do like silver and gold, I don't tend to suggest that people purchase them for trading in the future, because there are many situations where people won't want those. But again, ammunition, food, water, fuel, and various other valuable but consumable commodities, these are all things that you can use to turn, honestly, sometimes useless dollars into a valuable asset that will always have tangible value to people. So, those are my 9 objects that I think a person should pay attention to when they first get into prepping, that will benefit them the most and get them the furthest into being prepared. So, to go over those again, we're talking about basically starting to pay attention to your finances, budgeting tightly, and not spending money where you don't need to, and basically maximizing your spending power to fortify your lifestyle and guarantee that random acts of nature can't make you live a worse lifestyle than you want to. Second is fitness, basically paying attention to your health and general physical capabilities. We don't want to die from avoidable health consequences, and we also want to be capable of doing the things that we might need to in an emergency situation. We want to pay attention to our security, and that not only relates to personal security against violent threats, but also just our general safety as we encounter the world. We want to make sure that we have enough water, food, and prescription medication to last us at least a week for our first goal. We want to make sure that our friends and the people that we surround ourselves with are people that would be worth having around in a crisis situation. We want to assess our skills and always be paying attention to our training and capabilities and knowledge base. And we want to pay attention to our location, where we live, the pros and cons of our location, and what are some places that we would be able to go to if we were in an emergency, like our house burnt down or a local area had some kind of evacuation situation go on. And finally, if we're able to, we may want to have something that we can store some of our value in, some of our wealth, whether that be tangible things that we're just buying because we know we'll use them later, like foods we always use, or stuff that we know we may be able to trade in a crisis situation, whether that be gasoline or ammunition or various things that everybody needs but don't necessarily keep enough of. So those are my 9 basic items, and in the future I do plan on starting a series of videos where we go into each of these items in depth and give you suggestions for what you can do to better prepare in each of these fields. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos on these topics. Everybody, stay safe. All right. Thank you, stream, for hanging out for that. Hopefully that was decent enough that I can clip something and get a video out for everybody else. I will be hanging out for a few minutes after that. I was just making a little bit of a video clip to cut out. No, you're good, CR. We are going to be heading out here pretty soon. But mostly I was just making that little concise clip to share with anybody who's not able to hang around for this whole thing. So it is surprisingly difficult to talk for 2 or 3 minutes without, I mean, there were plenty of errors in there, but whew, that's it's a little bit of a task. But thank you, everybody, for hanging out for that. Yeah, it was nice seeing you too, man. Haven't talked to you for a while, CR. Debbie, yep. Yeah, no, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate that. Yeah, usually I try to aim for a little bit more concise information, but that's doing that all in a string out of nowhere is whew. But we'll throw it out there, and I'm sure people will appreciate it. Anyways, I think we'll start to wrapping up. Appreciate y'all hanging out here for so long. Any big plans for anybody in the next couple days? I will be mostly just working and doing the grind. Maybe try to get another bit of content out here soon. Hi, Desert. Thank you for being here. Harvest time soon. Cool, Creative. What do you have to harvest? I unfortunately did not really grow anything this year. I have some strawberries growing, but I didn't plant any seed this year. It's been a busy year for me. Something hopefully ripe. Yes, we do hope so, don't we? I think I'm going to make and can some chicken soup. Hey, that's awesome, ID Crisis. That's a good idea. No blossom end rot would be nice. Yes, definitely. It's always a shame whenever you start losing food stuff. Wow, it's still only 9:30 here. It always feels much later when you stream. The news is getting fairly woeful. Yes, it is. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but yeah, I get a lot of YouTube videos suggested to me from news channels and different reports, basically. And yes, the world is getting very chaotic out there, very unstable, it seems. Prepping is a mental salve in such unstable times, better than Prozac. Yes, I mean, I absolutely agree, and that's why the prepping community has seen such an influx of people. Is people are paranoid, people are scared, and this is the salve to that. Exactly. People are made to feel better by feeling like they can do something about it. Doing the gardening stuff before something really happens in time. Yeah. Yep, that's smart. Harvest it as it gets ripe. So you know. Yep. Well, cool, Creative. That's good to hear. Good to hear from you. Glad you're still doing the same old thing. Makes me happy. But yes, ID Crisis. Yeah, things are getting crazy, and it's gotten to the. I mean, it's pretty much unavoidable, unignorable for the regular folks. I think everybody is their baseline is very much so in line with preppers nowadays. I honestly think the survival aspect of the show is what made The Walking Dead so popular. Absolutely. Um, yeah, survival stuff is really, really seeing its heyday. Um, I mean, it's why I loved it, and I think um, I've always been an oddball a bit like that. You know, I mean, it's like the Fallout video games. I never got. I mean, I enjoy them quite a bit. I've played them, but just seeing the popularity of that kind of thing, I did recognize that that was what made The Walking Dead popular, and the fact that many people didn't like the drama aspect of the show only reinforces that people have a desire to witness and imagine that survival scenario, the reality, the grueling nature of. Hey, Jessica, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Good to see you. We're getting close to wrapping up a little bit here, for the moment at least. But yes, people do sort of thirst for that survival atmosphere. Um, there's a place in human psychology for a barren wasteland because that is the reality of much of human history. Is the safari, the the wild nature where food must be scraped and extracted. You know, pardon me, I have the whiskey hiccups. Why am I wearing a shirt? This is people wear shirts under polos. It's the way that people do it. I don't understand why people. Everybody. Okay, this has become a meme. This is what I wear. I don't understand. Is this weird? Give me chat. Come on. We're gonna do. Where's the poll option on here? There we go. Create a poll. Undershirt plus polo shirt. No or no? I've never heard this. This is an acceptable form of clothing. No, see, immediately no, bro. Come on, people. Is, do you have no fashion sense or do I? We got 80% on yes so far. I wear a t-shirt under a polo. Yeah. See, the thing is, when you have an extraordinarily masculine chest, you have to hide it from the masses. I see. I've always been a t-shirt and ratty jeans kind of guy. I've been trying to wear a little bit nicer clothes, so you put the t-shirt under a polo. You don't have the chest hair showing. You know how much have I had to drink? Not enough. No, I keep it. I keep the stream pretty buttoned up until the end of it. Sort of like the polo. If it were a white t-shirt, it'd be better. Well, I am a man, so I'm not exactly going to color coordinate my shit. They're lucky they get the two shirts. All right. Exactly. It's to hide the humility. Did I undo a button? No. Yeah, I got the button up short sleeves. No, I've got plenty of cool T-shirts. I actually have. I have a lot of novelty T-shirts that I have collected over time. No, it is getting cold. No, I wear this either which way. I do switch to long sleeves whenever it's warm. But yeah. No, it's just I'm trying to wear some nicer clothes. You know, trying to trying to respect my appearance, I'm just kidding. No. Well, I probably will be kicking off here pretty soon. I'm going to try to get some other work done here, but appreciate you all watching. Do catch the restream or the clipped video that I will be making in a day or so. Mostly been talking about the 9 things that I think a person should pay attention to whenever they get into prepping, but just sort of hanging out and chatting for the moment. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to go use the facilities and then come back to chat for a few minutes longer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to see you, Creative Redundancy. I'm glad you were able to drop in for the stream. Don't fall in. I did not fall in. I did grow hairs. Multiple suggestions to not fall in. I appreciate that. Good looking out. Everything came out all right. It's good. Yeah. Nope. Thank you, Jessica. $30. I didn't take a poo, Jessica. I appreciate you looking out, though. So, yeah. If I inspired anybody to get into preparedness, you're going to go buy 50 pounds of rice. Expect you all to go buy 50 pounds of rice and 55 gallons of water tomorrow. It's actually pretty simple to do. How much TP? Am I going to pay for it? No. That's on you. Toilet paper, 30 patches per person per day. 30 squares. That's all you get. You got to make it work. And some beans. Yes, Creative. You must store many beans. It is prerequisite to store beans. Do you eat beans? Have you ever eaten beans outside of Taco Bell or Chipotle? Doesn't matter. Store beans. Doesn't matter if you don't know how to cook beans. Just store a bunch of them. I mean, we cook beans here, but many people don't know how to cook beans. No, it's true, Jessica. And yes, ID Crisis. Hand warmers are an acceptable form of oxygen absorbers. If you go to Winco, the bulk food place, many of them sell Mylar bags and oxygen and moisture absorbing packets by the bulk. So you can actually go to Winco, buy a 5-gallon bucket and a 5-gallon Mylar, fill it with stuff, and then buy the oxygen and moisture absorbers to drop in it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, cooking raw beans is a little bit of a task. So that's sort of what I was getting at, is storing a lot of beans is a little bit of a mistake if you aren't also cooking them a lot and knowing how you're going to be preparing all those beans in this situation. 30 squares of toilet paper on a rice diet. Yeah, you probably wouldn't need all that on a pure rice diet. That is correct, Jessica. Yeah, no, the most Taco Bell, most Mexican food that you can get in America basically is not Mexican food. Yes, Jessica, that's the point. You'd be so constipated you wouldn't be pooping a lot. You would need a lot of fiber. Yeah, green beans, lots of fiber, or just Metamucil fiber supplements, stuff like that. But yes, a lot of preppers don't talk about their diet and things like that when it comes to constipation and stuff. With what they're storing, they store a lot of dehydrated food and stuff that is going to be very uncomfortable if you don't have enough fiber. Well, folks, I'm about to get pretty boring. Sort of filled out the topics for the day. We can start talking about random stuff, especially if you guys have any prompts. But short of some scintillating conversation appearing out of nowhere, I think we might call it a night for tonight. I do have a video game channel I'm going to try to produce some content for. Um, if I've got the steam for it, we'll see. Anna says, my mom always grew and canned green beans. I snapped them, but she never showed me how to can. Well, I happen to know that it's an incredibly popular topic to talk about on YouTube channels. There's a lot of canning and jarring videos for that kind of stuff. Good night, Creative. Creative says, stay proactive and ready, everybody. Take care. Yes, Creative, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. It's great to see you again. And you have a great night, buddy. I'll hopefully see you again soon. TR says, so what are your thoughts about plants that require a lot of water, like tomatoes and pumpkins, versus conserving water for drinking? Debbie says, take care, everyone. Yes, thank you, Debbie, for showing up, and I'll catch you in the future. Thank you, ID. I'll catch you later. Um, when it comes to plants that require a lot of water, that is directly the calculation you need to make when it comes to growing those things. There's a reason that certain crops are the crops that we use, is because there's a good balance of calories to resources taken to grow that thing. So yes, tomatoes, pumpkins, and other curcumins like melons and cucumbers and stuff, they require a ridiculous amount of water. Um, so you probably will not be growing them in a desert when the running water goes away, for instance. But if you always have abundant water, then you're not going to be limited to what you can grow. It really comes down to what you have the water for. If you are dragging water buckets to your house to water your garden, it's very likely that you're gonna start cutting out the very watery plants. Um, Carrots use a lot less water than tomatoes and have a lot more nutrients. So, um, yeah, rainwater barrels for your tomatoes. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do, but yes, basically there's going to be a direct correlation balance between how much water you have versus what you're going to grow. Because yeah, I mean there are charts that basically show the water use scale for different crops, basically. So it's very, hey, Jay Snip, good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a while. Glad you're able to drop in. Y'all just getting all liquored up and pontificating on the latest prepper fashions? Pretty much, yes. We're about to wrap up. And yes, we've been doing a little bit of drinking and talking about prepper fashion and general topics as usual. So I'm glad you're able to drop in. Jay Snip is very long-term channel follower. So it's always cool to see somebody who's been hanging out with you for years. So hope you're doing all right, bud. Jessica, yes, I saw that video. I know what you're talking about. No, don't use the finger patch toilet paper technique. That's terrible. But yeah, no, I'm really happy you dropped in, Jabroni. That's awesome. Yeah, just mostly hanging out at this point and talking about whatever people bring up. Just been went over my list of 9 basic items for new people to start paying attention to when they prep. Uh, yeah, catch it on the replay. I also in a day or so I'll be putting together a little 5-minute or less clip that I made um, that'll sort of cover the basics of what we talked about. Oh yeah, Jessica, absolutely happy. Yeah, no, I don't tend to go too long, but yeah, no, I love it when people drop into chat. Hopefully, eventually, we'll have enough people in here that we can do the hours long thing that a lot of people do with the panel chat and stuff. But mostly, I just wanted to get in here and start making some content, and I'm still getting back into the groove of making videos and stuff. But anyways, I think I am gonna go ahead and hop on out of here and take care of some stuff. So thank you everybody for showing up and hanging out. Yeah, I'm sure that. Oh yes, I'm so sure, Jessica. You're just not used to real men. You're just used to these California boys. This is what real men look like in free states. Get used to it. Anyways, everybody have a good evening. Appreciate you all being here. It's great to hang out. I'm sure I'm going to start doing this a lot more because it is a good time and real men. Well, I mean, yeah. How went the beer and wine sales today? It was a little bit slow. Wednesday is a sort of slow day. Um, yeah, nothing too particular to. I brought in some new wines yesterday, but today was pretty slow. So, um, one thing I'd stress to new preppers more than any other is their plan is custom tailored to them alone. No cookie cutter plans. Yes, actually, I appreciate that because that was something we touched on a lot. Jay Snip is that no matter what, even including people, especially people like me, um, nobody, even the most professional person, can tell you what you should be doing to prepare, especially through a YouTube video. So no matter what information you bring in, you must always assess it for how applicable it is to your situation before anything else. America Shirts, hey, how you doing, bud? If anybody does need a shirt, you can go to americashirtsourfirst.com. America First, AmericaShirtsOurFirst.com has a shirt that says abolish the Fed, abolish the FBI. He has a shirt that says abolish the FBI, and I fully support that. Go buy that shirt from him. You should mod us so we can. Yeah, I suppose I trust you enough to mod you up. Let's go ahead and give some of my buddies from the other channel some moderation status. Don't go crazy, but yeah, pertinent leaks, sure. What kind of wine used to make? Ooh, prickly pear wine. That stuff is good. The wine that I brought in yesterday, I brought in. There's a winery called Vampire, and they produce Vampire branded wine. It's really particularly popular around Halloween, which is why I'm stocking up on this right now. TR, I will give you a wrench. I might unwrench some people later. I keep it very tight around here, but I trust you guys to have the wrenches. I just gets a little chaotic with a lot of wrenches. But yeah, you guys are good. So yes, I brought in Vampire Winery has a Dracula sparkling rosé that they just released. So I brought some of that in. So I got some sparkling rosé with a cool bottle, Dracula. Um, so yes, I am gearing up for the Halloween season with the various beers, pumpkin spice ciders, and things like that. And then the other one was a red blend from, oh shoot, what was the brand? I can remember the grapes, but not the brand. They accidentally sent it to me, so I tried it out. Hello, M. Schwartz. But it is a it's a Sangiovese, Grenache, Petit Syrah, and Cab Sauv blend, and it was delicious. So I went ahead and told them I ordered something else, and they sent that one to me. I said, "Oh, Ferrari Carano." The Ferrari Carano. Oh, now it's going to bother me which blend it was. Yes, the Ferrari Carano Sienna Red. Anybody's actually that interested in it. It is a really good red blend, dark red, juicy, not too sharp or tanniny. Um, yes. Why aren't I monetized? Because I like burnt out, stopped making videos whenever I was really close. I was at 2,000 hours and 1,000 people. So I've pretty much sat at 1,500 hours, even with a dead channel. So I really just need to make enough content to get people watching it, and I'll be monetized pretty soon. Um, but mostly, I burnt out. I was making 3 videos a day for a long time, and then when COVID started, I basically got so tired with the prepping community that I tapped out. So there's a lot of bullshit going around back then. And then I also I took over managing the store where I work at, and COVID was a very hectic time to be a store manager for where I worked. So I was doing I was just so busy. Have any links? Just the channel. I suppose we could start running the playlists a little bit. I do have, well, we'll wait. I have playlists that are people can watch through to produce watch hours on, but not too worried about it. Yeah, more live streams. Yeah, I am trying to get back into it. To be quite honest, I get off of I work overtime, so I get off of work and weird code in the channel description. Um, I tend to get off of work and have weird energy levels that I'll tend to crash out until midnight, and there's not really much point of starting a live stream at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I tend not to, but let's see what's going on here. Code in the description. I'm not seeing any code. I'm not sure what's going on there. I see the text that I typed in. Oh, channel description, like my about page. I'm not sure about that, actually, to tell you the truth. That must have been either a link or something. Well, we'll get that taken care of. Appreciate the notification as to that thing. I'm not sure what that was. Need more prep lives. Oh, lives, yeah. No, I do. I just need, like I said, it's sort of, I get home and I often have responsibilities I need to take care of that push my evening even later into the night. So, yeah, no, I do enjoy the hanging out and chatting and stuff. So, yeah, I just need to start producing more content, and we'll be getting there pretty quickly to the monetization. So that'll be under the studio. Interesting. There it is. Just going to fix this real quick while we're talking about it. Huh. Yeah, it even appears here as just a string of numbers and letters. All right, well, that should be fixed. Yeah, no, I do enjoy doing the live streams. I'm also like 30% a perfectionist. So if I don't have a very concise plan for the live stream, I don't like to start it. If I'm not like 100% on my game, I tend to procrastinate doing it until I'm properly prepared. But no, I do need to just start doing more of the live streams and stuff. Anna loves butter, Chardonnay, and drier pinks. Shouldn't do Lambrusco. Yes, I sell a lot of the. If you're talking about the Jam Cellars butter Chardonnay, that is a very popular wine. So yes, I do need to set up a streaming software. I'm using the YouTube webcam link right now, but um, yes, soon I will start doing some of the streams where I share news articles and stuff, because there are a lot of interesting things going on that I keep track of that I think a lot of people would be interested in knowing about. The world is increasingly becoming a more chaotic and interesting place. But yes, if any of you haven't heard about it, the Illinois is just getting more and more crazy. They are about to basically legalize second degree murder and various other things. So, not legalize, but sorry, they will make them an offense where they will set you a court date and release you without arresting you or setting bail or anything like that for arson, kidnapping, second degree murder, threatening a political official, attempted kidnapping, attempting fleeing, various other violent crimes will all be court date and release offenses in the state of Illinois starting in 2023 under the Safety Act, which passed. Uh, so that is just one indicator of how crazy the world is getting. So there's a lot of stuff like that that I plan on starting to cover in future videos. Just I guess sort of a baseline. I think it's important to keep a baseline of an awareness of where the world is at and what's going on around you, because there are a lot of things going on nowadays that back in the 90s would have been insane to consider. Yeah, Pillowman got raided. There are many things that uh, tend to get sensationalized in even right wing or just general media. And I always try to take the more moderated route, I guess you could say, because believe me, I am a conspiracy theorist at my core. And whenever I see something, I tend to very quickly extrapolate the most extreme possibilities from it. So nothing escapes me when it comes to how suspicious things look. But when it comes to how I present things and how I like to talk about stuff, I get a lot of benefit from trying to mellow things out and look at things from the most rational perspective. Because the more, okay, let me give an example because I'm being pretty vague here. Um, let's talk, so for instance, let's talk about
the political raids and stuff like that. On one hand, you could say that Trump is being targeted, and there's very clearly a conspiracy afoot to go after him and everybody after him. And I don't necessarily think that that's incorrect. But it sounds a lot more reasonable to say that no matter how legitimate this prosecution of Trump is, any reasonable person performing it should be more cautious as to the optics of it, because currently the optics of what is going on seem almost deliberately tailored to infuriate exactly half of the country. And if you were to put any reasonable person in charge of what's going on right now, they would be conscious of the fact of the inflammatory nature of what's going on. And far from that, it would seem that being inflammatory is the purpose of what's going on. And I think that that's reasonable. I think that if you say, if nothing else, it sort of seems like there's a big middle finger in a lot of this. That I have yet to find a person who can't agree with that. When I say, no matter no matter which side you're on, is it very clear that nobody is being civil in this matter? And most people will say yes. When you see all these things, no matter who you are, it's fair to say that it looks incredibly suspicious. So that's where I tend to come from with it, and I have yet to find even people on the far left who cannot acknowledge, when you put it quite simply, does some of this stuff look incredibly suspicious? They will say, well, yes, I will grant you that. And personally, that's a victory, because very rarely can you get something like that out of somebody who disagrees with you. So, yes, I see a lot of this stuff, like TR was mentioning, and it's very concerning. Um, yeah. Anyways, I think that my chat might have backed up a little bit. That's the last thing that's been said, but could be that everyone's dropping out. But on that note, I think it might be a good time to get going, because we have chatted for a while. And, well, it's about time to wrap it up for now. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, everybody who's rewatched, particularly because, far from being here in the live chat, rewatching this on your own is a different task altogether. So once again, thank you, everybody, for watching and showing up. Hopefully I'll see you guys all soon in either this or a different live stream. And guess I'll catch you next time. Thank you for watching, and everybody, stay safe out there. Yep. Good night, TR. Thank you. Have a good one, and catch you guys all later. Yep. Jay Snip, have a good one. Good to see you, buddy. Stay safe.